everybody, and welcome to the Byram Hills Board of Education meeting, March 23rd, 2018. Please join us for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It's so wonderful to see everybody here tonight. This board meeting is predominantly going to be budget hearing number 3, and as well as some other board business. So we're joined tonight by some of our program areas and facilities areas in the district for budget, and we'll hear about revenue too in a little while. But first, I called the meeting to order at 7:15, and we went into executive session to discuss 2 items. 3.1, which was a personnel matter, individual employee. 3.2, legal matter, transportation. At this time, are there any comments from the public on any matters that are not on tonight's agenda? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
And a second. All in favor? And can I have a motion to approve our consent agenda for personnel, special service, and business?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
All in favor? So in this consent agenda tonight, we have a couple of special announcements. The first one is we have just approved the position moving over Gina Cunningham, who you all know currently as our assistant principal of the high school, and knew previously as psychologist of the middle school, and as of next year is going to be the assistant to our superintendent for human resources. We are thrilled to have Gina here tonight. The board just approved that position and want to welcome her family who's here to support her. I'm going to turn it over. Before I turn it over to Jen, I wanted to say to Gina, I mean, your experience, your responsibility, what you've done for our district in your other capacities is going to lead you to great success, I'm sure, in the district office. And I want to thank you for your dedication to our community and to our school district. The board has always prided itself on finding stars within our district and coming up with plans to really showcase our leaders and keeping them in the district. So to see what you're doing here is really just terrific. So we want to congratulate you and wish you best of success.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'd like to say a few things to your daughters. Years ago, when your mother was working at the middle school as a school psychologist, she was a leader even back then. And I think what she showed us 2 really important things is that kids matter most, and I'm sure that happens in your home, right? And that that she's always looking to be a leader. And taking on new responsibilities all the time. You know, there was never a question as to what the quality of her work would be or her dedication to this school. And I know from experience, and you know, Dr. Coltonecker and Ms. McInerney and I, we're people who really dedicated ourselves to these children in this district and to the people who work here. And we're dedicated to making this the best place it can possibly be for kids to grow up and for families to live and for people to work. And I know that nothing stops that level of dedication for us, and we see the exact same thing in your mom. So we're really proud of her. She's taking on an enormous responsibility. It's really enormous. And we think that she's going to be fantastic. And, you know, it doesn't come from spending 14 years in the district. It's not about time. It's about her passion for the work that she does. And I had a conversation with somebody a long time ago, and I said, what I like about my job is I come to work every day like this. And I think your mom does too. So we're really happy to have her here, and she's going to help to make some great changes for us. So welcome to Gina. I couldn't be more thrilled. I couldn't think of anybody else who would be better for that position than you.
Thank you.
And welcome to your daughters, to this new family, and your husband and your parents. I'm so glad you were able to come.
The problem, Gina, is you're doing such a great job now. You really left us with a horrible decision because we want you so much here, but we love you so much there. But all that really is a tribute to you. I mean, the quality of work is as Jen said, day in, day out, and what reports we get back, you really have become just a real star here at Byram Hills. So to your two daughters, when your mom gets honored this way, this is a cool event. You should be really proud of your mom, and it's okay to brag about it from time to time. Because
Did you guys have a dance performance prepared?
Yes.
Yeah, we would love
I
it.
understand there's some Irish dancing down here, but you don't have to if you don't want, and it's okay if you don't. But your mom's very special to us, and she has two families. She has a Byram Hills family, but obviously more important, she has you guys as your real family. So congratulations to your mom. We're very proud of her, and we wish you many, many happy years in your new position here at Byram Hills.
Thank you so much.
Really.
So now, what does your mom do every day? She's in charge of about 550 employees come July 1st, and supporting 2,300 plus students. So that's a pretty big job.
Yeah.
And Chris and Kristen, thank you so much for letting her go. And I guess we should. And this started when Deb Kalyas was retiring, and Peggy's moving back in, was moving into the principal role of Wampus, and now you're coming here, so it keeps on moving
I'm sorry,
forward.
Robin, there is one other point, and it was made, but it really should be stressed, especially to those who are watching this and who do follow our meetings. It's that for the last, I guess, 12 years or so, the program, I guess, really put in place to fill the key leadership positions internally at Byram Hills with those who know our culture, who've been part of us, really has taken root. And I couldn't think of a better example than with you, Gina. And when I think of the appointments that have been made in the last decade or so, we really have been very, very successful in doing that. And we had to hire this athletic director from some other district somewhere. But putting that guy aside.
And Kristen too.
And Chris, yeah, that's
And
right.
the other director.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, yeah?
But,
We do hire from the
but when
outside.
I do think of of major appointments that have been made, for the most part, and we have been successful in keeping it internally. And I think as long as we can continue to do that, it just speaks really well for our possibilities to achieve what we want to achieve for the kids, which is the only reason to do this crazy stuff. So,
And we do have a unique culture, so.
yeah, there is a Byram Hills culture. There really is. We know it. You know it, Gina. The people who come out to support you are here because of that culture. And I think it's all good. So we look forward to July 1 when you pack your boxes up and bring them up the road here. And we wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And while you're all here, before we let you leave, I just want to, we might as well celebrate one other thing that we also approved on our consent. Wanted to thank the Armonk Youth Soccer Foundation. They made a donation to our district, which is going to be used for a softball trip for training to Disney. And it was close to $5,000, so thank them for that.
Armonk softball.
It was Armonk Youth Sports Foundation.
Not Armonk. Who made the contribution? You said soccer.
Did I say soccer?
Yes.
Oh, that's of course I have it, sorry. Armonk, thank you for correcting me. I have a soccer player, oh my gosh. Armonk Youth, that is so funny, sorry, let me correct that.
That's all right.
Armonk
Maybe we'll get
Youth
money
Sports
from them, too.
Foundation. So I want to thank them for that. So we'll take a quick break.
Unless you want to say something in rebuttal to all the nice things that were said about you, Gina.
No, I would just say thank you to Jen and Tim, Peggy, and the Board of Education, to my colleagues here, of course my family, my current administrative team. Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Another star is born.
Or continues to shine.
Now you're more than welcome, as always, to stay for a meeting, but if you prefer now, we can take a quick break.
Yeah.
That is And so now, we are officially opening up budget hearing 3. And we're going to hear from athletics, facilities and transportation, and revenue. I'm going to turn it over to Jen.
Yes, thank you so much for being here tonight. As Robin said, it's budget hearing 3 of 5, and we are continuing to look at expenditures. So tonight, we're going to see operations of the schools, including facilities, transportation, and athletics. Steve is here to talk to us about capital asset preservation plan, and helping the public understand how we're budgeting to maintain our facilities. And Trish Coyne will talk about ongoing improvements to our transportation services. And then Rob Castagna will describe the impact of proposed expenditures on our athletic programs. So it's important to note too, before we hear each of these presentations, that on our May budget vote, you will be seeing Proposition 2 on the ballot this year. And this is a proposition seeking approval from the public for the district to use money in our capital reserve fund to pay for the cost of a turf and track replacement at the high school. It's important for taxpayers to know that the approval to spend the existing monies, these are monies that have been earmarked for this project. And thanks to planning for large improvements, we don't seek to override the budget or to approve a bond for this. We only seek to spend what has already been reserved for this purpose from a fund that was created last year with voter approval. So understand that that Proposition 2 is not in the budget, even though this is affecting facilities and it is affecting athletics. This is money that had been earmarked. So when you hear about Proposition 2 at the vote, you are not to think that this had a huge impact on these budgets we're hearing tonight. So we will start with, I think we start with Rob.
Athletics, yeah.
Yep, we start with Rob. And then after that, we will be hearing from Jim about revenue. So go ahead, Rob. Rob Castagna, welcome.
Thank you very much. And I'm obviously here to talk about our athletic program and our proposed budget for interscholastic athletics, which will continue to support all of the programs that we presently have in place. Our budget will support 18 different sports, 59 different athletic teams, and 98 different coaching positions. The high school participation numbers continue to range between 25 to 40% depending on the season, and the middle school participation numbers continue to range between 25 and 35% depending on the season. With a 1.8% increase coming into this school year, and a 4.1% recommended increase for next year. My goal is to continue to build upon our success, which I'm excited about, and I believe the budget will allow us to continue to provide a quality educational-based athletics program in educational-based athletics. There is one area that I believe we can build upon, and it's the area of intramurals for the students in our younger grades, grades 5 through 8. And I want to keep the students involved in athletics. I want to keep them involved and interested in the sports that we offer. And we recently offered 4 different clinics this school year. And the feedback is positive, so we'll continue to do those things and offer different intramural programs for the younger athletes to keep them involved in the programs that we will eventually offer at the middle school and the high school. The overall health and safety of our student athletes will always be our primary concern, and it will always be at the forefront of the decisions that I make for our program and for our students and for our coaches and for our district. You'll notice a requested increase in the contractual and other line item, and that increase there is for a potential 2-week rental of stadium lights, 1 week in the fall and 1 week in the spring, and an increase in our rental code for the facilities that we rent, and a percentage increase for our athletic trainer. The stakes are high in interscholastic athletics, and from year to year we assess the needs for our programs, our facilities, and the equipment that we need to keep us safe. And I believe that this proposed budget, meets those needs and will keep us in a good place.
Rob, I'm sorry, just, you mentioned the increase in the rental fees with the lights. Was that the facility rental fees? Because it did go up like 9.5%. Was that because of the lights, not just because
No.
of the pool and the ice rental?
The rental increase is separate from the lights.
Okay.
That's a separate line item, so the increase is not connected, they're not connected to each other. It's the 9.1%, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get my.
I see 9.5 for facility rental fees?
Yes,
Should be on the
so,
line by line.
yeah, so I'm sorry, my line.
I think the
item.
9.5, Rob, might be the wrestling.
Yes.
Oh, wrestling?
Yes, we
Oh,
had a,
yes.
we had a pilot program at a brand new facility that opened up down the street here in Armonk, where we were able to rent that facility for $1,000 for the full season for the first year. Going into the second year, it will be at full value, so we had to, the increase is requested there to maintain the rental at that facility. And that's the increase there in rental. Along with, we have to expect a percentage increase in our other rentals, such as ice hockey and the swimming pools that we rent.
Is that a GPS?
At GPS, yes.
It's a nice facility.
Yeah, very nice
Yeah.
facility, very nice.
Are you, at this point, you mentioned that all the existing programs would be sustained in the budget. Is there anything on your radar that you know of now? I mean, you never know with numbers when it comes time in the fall, but anything you know of that will not occur just because of declining enrollment? And I guess the second question would be anything that you see demand for that we're not fulfilling right now?
For the recommended budget for next year, all of the programs will remain, and I don't see any of them not taking place because of enrollment. I think participation, I think will be okay. And as far as new programs, I've in meeting with the principal and talking about this budget ahead of time, we're comfortable with the programs that we presently offer.
So you don't see any need to expand?
Well, right now, no, to expand, to add programs, no.
Yeah.
No. I think right now, I believe right now, my goal is to increase participation for the programs that we do have.
The only reason I say that is because the winter sports, you know, seems, I think participation level of winter sports is the lowest of the three, right? And I mean, there are programs that are offered in the winter that, if adopted well, could increase participation. And I'm not saying it's a good idea. I'm just noting that overall participation for things such as I like gymnastics, bowling, things of that nature. I mean, we've never really considered. We've never done it. And this may not be the time to do it, but I'm always in favor of looking at things like that.
We did this year, actually, for the winter, we tried a pilot for bowling, a pilot program this year, right here at the Mount Kisco Lanes. We ran the program for almost 4 weeks,
Really?
but the interest wasn't there. We provided transportation, which worked out well for us.
What grades was it offered to?
It was offered for students in grades 9 through 12.
Wow. And how many took advantage?
We started off with 20 athletes 20 students on the sign-up list, but when the bus departed every day, it was below 5, and then it went down to below 3. So we had to really reevaluate that.
I commend you for trying
Yeah.
something new,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
I do too. I think it was a good shot at it. And, you know.
And it's not to say that we won't revisit
Yeah.
things like that in the future, but right now, since it just happened, we figured we wouldn't revisit it right
That
now.
was a good shot. I agree with Mike. That was a good shot.
Is there an increase in the number of the spring teams going to Disney? It seems like more and more are. I know we had music that went there also separately, but what about from the athletic standpoint?
Last year, the girls lacrosse team did not go to Disney. Last year, it was just softball and baseball. So this year, it's one additional team.
And as far as the cost, I know we get donations from that, but is that something that's on the increase? I was trying to see where the line item was, I couldn't see it.
There's a percentage increase in that from year to year, but the donations help, the contributions from the local organizations, that, as you mentioned this evening, those help tremendously.
And the parents pretty much, I mean, we divvy up the cost to the players, we add in something for the coaches as well. I think it's really covered by donations, for the most part. I know there's a portion of your budget that goes to that, but I think for the most part.
Kids raise the
covered.
money too.
Yeah, the kids raise the money and there's donations and
And
then
that's
parents pay for it.
sustainable? You're
Yeah.
getting that it's been sustainable?
Yeah.
Okay.
The parent chaperones are going there. No? Yes.
I don't think there's any parent
We
chaperones.
have the
no.
coaches. We have our
Just the
coaches.
Coaches
who
and then
attend.
security.
Sometimes
There's a lot of
parents go down
security.
to games.
I would imagine, but yeah.
Bob, do we have more away games? Because I noticed game security is
Went
down.
down.
Yes, so what that, the reason for the change in that line item was that we used more NJB personnel in place of the Newcastle, our police department, local police department for several games. That's what that
reduced
was.
the cost.
Yeah,
But we have the same amount of security.
same amount, yeah, we just changed the personnel that covered the game.
And for the
Matter.
night games, I guess we need probably more security.
Yes, and that's factored in to that line item, the additional man-hours that will be needed for that in addition to the lights.
I couldn't be happier that we're giving that a shot. I really do. I think it's going to add a whole nother dimension to the athletic and community spirit that Byram Hills can engender. I really do. I'm very excited about
Me
it.
too.
Talking
Yeah.
about community spirit, those clinics that you had really were amazing for community participation. The older kids were such leaders, and the younger kids are so excited to get to that point. So thank you
Yeah,
for that
thank you.
opportunity. It was really a great community building and community awareness of how wonderful our programs are.
What clinics did you do?
Appreciate
What's
We did
space?
lacrosse, we're presently doing field hockey right now. And
Baseball.
And we did baseball, and we did a golf clinic, but it was for all ages, and we'll be offering that again next year as well. So that goal, that mission will continue, that vision will continue.
Well, the one thing I would just add on budget, sorry to divert here for a second, but just the charitable work that all the teams do, I don't want to emphasize it enough that the philosophy around having the teams participate in various charities, I think is such an important part of that process. So I wanted to add that and make sure, I know you've been reinforcing that with the coaches and such, but I think that's a wonderful thing we do as a district and especially the athletic program, so.
And it's really highlighted in that awards, in
Yes.
that ceremony
Yeah.
at the end of each season, which is
Yes.
really great. Every team is introduced and their project is discussed.
It's really fun to applaud their efforts there, and it's another way that the student athletes, they're showing their leadership skills and practicing their leadership skills in that area. Thank you.
So long as Byram Hills continues to emphasize the student athlete, I think you'll have big supporters here on the Board of Education.
Yes.
Rob, I also appreciate the conversations that we've had about security. And Rob making sure that he put into his budget additional security to be dealing with the booth and traffic coming in, and an additional security person to be outside during our sporting events. Just increasing by those two people is really going to make a difference.
Thank you.
So, and that's reflected
In here.
in here, is that the
Mhm.
line that's under coaches or no? Is it-
No, that would be reflected in the buildings and grounds budget.
Buildings and grounds, okay.
Well, there's also
Also
a line
game
game
security.
security.
Yeah, but that's for
Yeah.
Please.
events, supervision,
Got it.
police, and
Guys, one other question. Coaches' salaries, are we where we need to be there in terms of the salaries that we're paying, the stipends or salaries we're paying to our varsity
We are.
JV
There were there were a couple of sports that we've spoken about recently,
Yeah.
and those will be spoken with, they'll be discussed with the teachers' union and the representatives, but I think we're in a very good place.
Okay, good.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
Okay, and next we have, yep. School facilities, operations and maintenance with Steve Thompson.
Good. So I'm going to start off with the operation of plant, which is 1620 code. And in those codes, things that come out of the salaries, equipment, contractual, BOCES services, fuel oil, electric, cartage. We were able to just do a 1.8% increase from last year's budget. 1621 maintenance of plant. Those codes, some of the things that come out of there are maintenance services. When I say maintenance services, that is like services that take care of our elevators in the schools, fire alarm systems, that by code we have to, the company has to go through them every year. Our burglar alarms and things like that. So that's what maintenance services is. The CAT plan of projects are in there, cleaning supplies. So the total maintenance of the plant was a 0.4 increase from last year's budget. I'm just going to skip right to are there any questions with the budget? I was just going to skip right to the CAT plan and talk about the projects that we're going to be doing this summer.
Actually, I have one question. On the Safe Schools program, there's a decrease. Can you explain what that Safe Schools program is? It's under operations of plant. It's BOCES, it looks like it's BOCES services, but it wasn't clear what that was.
I'm going to let Jim.
The comment section says Safe Schools program. It's a decrease of 20%, but it's under Central Services BOCES, under operation of plant.
Yeah, that's BOCES services. It's a risk management service that we subscribe to.
Oh, okay, that was when people came and they gave us their assessment, is that?
Right,
okay, that's
and
what-
when you had the lead testing, when a compliance issue comes down from the state, a lot of times BOCES takes the lead on it.
Okay.
And then, this year we didn't really subscribe to the service. We're handling the issues as they come up through the district budget. There hasn't been really any big compliance issues that have come down this
Not
year.
this year.
If something comes up in the future, if we have to do more lead testing or something like that, then we would subscribe to the service. So it's just, this basically was just aligning the appropriation more closely with the expenditure, what we've been spending the last couple of years.
What happens with those services is they have a lot of things on those services that we can use, but some of the things we don't need to use, because like our fire inspector that does the buildings every year from the town, he does it for free. So that's like a service on there. So some years we opt not to get certain things over there because there's no need to pay for it when we're getting it, from the town or other sources, so.
Okay. Any other questions?
I had one quick question on the electric use, and there was some discussion at some point last year around, I don't know if the term's cogeneration or this ability
Yeah.
so.
We
is
just had a
that'll
big
be
meeting about that yesterday.
That'll be covered in the CAP plan discussion?
Yeah, so we had we met with the, they did the companies did a demonstration, they did a presentation for us yesterday. It was quite long. It didn't have to be, but. So we're still in the process of looking at it. I think it offers us a lot of savings in electric. It offers us with the heat that comes back that's not used. It gives us air conditioning in the areas of the school. It can give us more heat. It can give us more power. So we are looking at that. We're still a ways away from implementing it. There's a lot of still work that has to be done to get to that point. So there is money in the CAP plan that's moving, that's in the reserve fund from last year to purchase the install of the equipment. The Power Authority pays for the equipment. We would have to pay for the install. So that's why we put money in last year and this year to make sure because I'm not sure what that's going to be until they do all kinds of, they've done calculations, but they have to do more calculations of the building to see how big of a co-generator we need for the application we're looking for. And then there's absorbers that go in the boiler room that give us the capability to do all these other things from that co-generator.
Would the counterparty be Con Ed, or is it some other entity that does this?
That does the install?
Yeah.
No, the
Or
install,
yeah, that you enter into the arrangement with, I guess.
you enter the arrangement with the Power Authority,
With the power, with,
New York Power Authority.
No,
The
or
night.
NRG or any of these, you know, it's not, it doesn't have to be Con Edison or New York Power, it could be one of these third-party, you know, consolidators
right.
or.
Yeah, but we buy, you know, we purchase our power off the grid from the Power Authority, so we don't purchase it direct from Con Ed.
Right.
So, so that's who we're gonna be talking to. Also, the other, if we do the co-generator moving forward, it also, if we do it at the high school, it releases our generator from the high school. We won't need the generator anymore, and then I could move that generator and install it up at Coleman Hill. So there's a savings there too, that we won't have to purchase like a $125,000 generator. We'll have to, you know, pay for the install of that, which is a big install. So we met yesterday, there's all kinds of things. I'm gonna be working on it very diligently
I just want,
soon.
right, from the budget standpoint, we have some money allocated, that's an estimate for, you know.
Yeah, we will be covered for the install of the unit, yes, and some of the, like I said, the absorbers and the actual co-generator would be covered under another end, so.
I mean, as that progresses, I would just do a more detailed board report, right, before we enter into any.
Before we enter into that agreement.
yeah, and that's what I was doing with the counterparty, just so we understand the counterparty and understand the length of time that we're locked in.
Long-term.
Having said that, I mean, I think I encourage you to look into arrangements like this, and if there are any other arrangements where we can make a short-term investment to potentially gain over the course of time a better cost structure on some of the plan issues, we should explore it, so.
Yeah.
From what I've seen so far, it's like the maintenance agreement is where you're buying
That's
into
it,
this
yeah.
relationship with them.
The cogeneration versus, like, let's say, solar power has a long payback time still. The cogenerator is a payback that's probably 3 to 5 years.
Got it.
And we'd be able to air conditioning, like the gym, the theater. Right now, we have an old unit in the theater that has 2 motors, and every time I have to replace a motor, it's like $12,000 a motor. So we'll replace that, replace the, so each absorber you add, you're able to do a section of the school. And so, and then the boilers also, you would only, we have 3 boilers there, you would only use, after the cogenerator is put in, you'd only use 1 boiler, the other 2 boilers would be, they wouldn't, you know, they would never run, because the cogenerator actually takes over as the lead piece of equipment for the entire school. Hot water, heat, air conditioning, and power, that's what it does, so.
I met a student at the high school when I was visiting a science class who was talking to me about, you know, generating energy. And he joined us at the table when we met with this group yesterday, John Millett. And I showed him, when we first sat down, I showed him my list of questions, and then he showed me his computer with his list of questions. He had been researching the company since I first told him about it, and he probably had better questions than
He
we
did, he
did.
was awesome.
He was intense and great, and he's going to be at the table with us in our learning process.
And I have to tell you, having him there.
He was a great help to
I was
us.
able to talk to him before for a few minutes, and it was very nice to have a high school student involved in a presentation of something that we're looking into doing. You know, having students, but on our end, in the maintenance end, you don't get students that.
Oh, yeah.
And it was really, it was
At
really
one point, he was
nice.
asking some questions, and the guy got up and he was drawing diagrams and explaining it to us in, you know, ways that we understood.
How did you
better.
find him? Like, how did
I was visiting a
involved?
science class, and they had a presentation, they were talking about renewable energy. And I said, that's interesting, I'm having somebody come here to give me some information on a cogenerator. And he started asking me questions, and I said, do you want to come?
Oh, my gosh,
great.
He came.
that is fantastic.
Yeah, he was fantastic.
It was great, yeah.
Great questions,
Yeah.
and he was engaging with these 4 gentlemen from the HVAC company
Yeah, he
and the
was.
cogenerator
idea.
company.
Yeah.
Once
Yeah,
again,
he
we
was
have leaders in every aspect of our school.
He was really good,
Student leaders
though.
are amazing.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell him I spoke about him tonight, so you can look.
So with the cap, were there any other questions with the cogenerator? I'm sorry.
No, I think we're good.
Well, that's the high school kid, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You get more info from him, you're better off. So with the cap plan, this this summer, what we're planning on. Coleman Hill, there was a grant for an indoor playground, so you see that in the cap plan for Coleman Hill. We're going to be taking down the grid work and the ceilings in those classrooms and the lighting. We're going to paint, we're going to have an open concept of the ceilings like we did in the coffee shop. We're going to paint it all black, put in LED lighting for the playground, and we have air conditioning split systems in the cap plan for those rooms for the kids. Wampus, we're going to be replacing some various floors. When I put various floors in the cap plan every year, it's basically, when I meet with the principals, we walk around, and if there's any areas that really old flooring that's all scratched and it doesn't look good and needs to be replaced, that's, when I put various, that's what it is. It's just, basically, it's just picking and choosing on areas every year that need to be done.
Wait a second, Peggy, did you get to go walk
I
through the
did.
school?
Steve and I
Did you
walked
do
through the
something?
building.
Okay.
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
So I didn't put that
Marble
here.
staircases for you.
HCC, we're going to renovate the library, so there's going to be a wall that's coming down, that little computer lab there, and then we're going to be using the existing ceilings but changing to LED lighting. Half the library is going to be new carpet, and the other half is going to be the laminated wood floor like we did in the coffee shop and the labs from last year. High school, the theater project. That is probably going to, we're probably going to have SED approval within the next week and a half.
Is this the seats?
Really?
This is the, yeah, the whole house, like, so the seating, the ceilings, lighting, the dimmer panels. We should have approval in about a week and a half to 2 weeks, and at that point, then we will be ready to start with the architects and engineer writing up bids, because we really have to get those bids out soon for this to take place this summer. There's one other avenue that I've been talking to the architects. We are going to purchase the seats, the installation of the seats, and the demo of the existing seats off of a national cooperative bid that we have purchased before off of, that we have gotten your approval. So I just got this today. So it won't be in the bid because there's a 16-week lead time for the seats. So I have to get them on order fairly soon to have them for this summer. So I'll be on the phone with them tomorrow, more with this national cooperative bid and seeing what we have to do and talking to Jim, and then, we'll take that from there. So that will be drawn from the bid when we put out the bid.
When are you planning on going out to bid?
I mean, we have to go out to bid probably in the next, I'm gonna say sometime in early May.
You be ready?
Yeah, we'll be ready, because they're ready to go. We're just waiting for the SED approval.
Yeah.
There's like 3 questions up there right now, because we did third-party reviews, so those questions have been answered, so now we're just waiting for the approval, and then they can draw up the bids, so.
And the plan for that room is done already, right? With the configuration of the seats and everything, right?
Yes, yeah, the ceilings,
We've
everything,
seen that, I
yeah.
think.
So
Yeah.
that's why we're ready to go, we're just waiting for approval.
Right.
The seats was big though because of the lead time. Some of the other items don't have a big lead time. We're planning on taking the theater over in June, but the project may go till like October 1st, a little bit past October. So the school knows about that. It's depending on how construction goes. So in the cap plan, we put all the halls around the theater when you walk in the main entrance, and basically the square around the whole entire theater. Want to replace all the grid work and all the ceilings and put in all LED lighting, and we're going to change out all the floors, because I wanted people to walk in the building and basically the whole area look new, not walk into dingy floors, that original floors from years ago, like there's a transition. So there's going to be no transition. It's going to be all brand new right around the theater. And then I like to every year just continue doing flooring and ceilings throughout the rest of the school in sections. So that's going to look, it's just going to look awesome when it's all done. So that's in the cap plan. Cap plan 2, we have money in there for cameras and things like that moving forward, and door locks and things that the district is looking at on different security things. So
Security's played a big part in our conversations about surveillance cameras.
Right. So the other transfer to capital was the bathrooms. The bathrooms that we were talking about putting down at Wampus. So we have money in there. That
The
we
outside
transfer
one.
to
The
capital,
outdoor.
yes, to help pay for that. So,
The gift of life.
Yeah.
So the question is, I saw we had a couple of models, I think at a previous board meeting on what that, but the transfer to capital is $450,000 for the bathrooms?
The bathrooms can, depending, we know about where the location's gonna be, but we don't know the environmental impact on how much it's gonna cost to go across the street and hook up into the town sewer. Those are things that we're still looking into. So the architects and engineers are gonna be coming on April 17th, and we will have more information for you about the whole athletic facilities project, yes.
But is that amount for not only the bathrooms, but also for the other work that was going to be done? Some of the, not the turf field, but the other fields and those stand, there were a number of bleachers,
and
right?
Signs and.
Well, there was the donation from the Armand.
That was ASAP.
So we're still working through that, on what we're doing with the fields versus the athletic facility project. So all those things are coming into play together. So I think we'll have better answers for you on the 17th of April.
Okay.
So we had seen, I think you showed us when we did the tours, the modular sort of prefab bathroom idea. Is that?
Yeah,
is that
I actually have a layout and a picture of the bathrooms, but I didn't bring it tonight because I want to make sure I want to make sure that's what we are going to, when I meet with
We've
them.
looked at a few different bathrooms since that night.
Before we show you guys a picture of what we're looking at. So, and we
I remember
had
there was an issue because it had to be ADA.
we
right?
had to do all kinds of
Yeah.
things with ADA and all the compliance.
So we couldn't
things.
fit as many stalls as we wanted.
Yes, so we will have that for April 17th. The only thing that's really right now that we're moving forward and rapidly too, because we have to put out construction bids for, is the synthetic field and the track. That, so also that will be, we will have more things to talk about on the 17th of April with that, so.
And I noticed that there's nothing here about the theater at HCC. Is that up to speed? I mean, is that okay? Was that
Yeah.
down the road going to need any kind of?
Yeah, no, we do
replacement seats?
we do repairs on the seats. It's still in good shape. I mean, I think, I'm not sure when we carpeted that, but it might need
I
some
think it's in
floor.
carpet.
Yeah, it might need a little dress up, but that's stuff we can do
Okay.
in-house. And I know we sanded down the stage a couple years ago. I had that brought down, but, so we're still at the point there. We can do some of those things with not big cost in-house out of the operation budget, so.
And we had talked a little bit about safety. I don't know how much you want to get into it
Right.
here, but there is room in your budget. You have budgeted for the safety items that Jen has been talking about with us.
Yes,
Correct?
we have been engaged in a lot of conversation, and yes, there's monies there for things that we may implement in the near future, yes.
Especially around, first of all, supervision with after-school athletic events, that was really important to us. But also for the sake of surveillance cameras, and, having perimeter cameras around each building and having somebody who surveils them, like lying between them and the
Right.
police department is important.
Correct.
Fortunately, we were looking at some of that before any of these incidents occurred, so we had an idea of what that was going to be for this budget. Otherwise, I think we'd be behind.
Okay.
Yeah. There's always monies in the operating budget, and that we had the room to do, if things do come up, so.
Steve also has the cement planters for in front of
Yes.
Crittenden in here.
So cement planters, two places, the cafeteria at the middle school. I've always wanted to put planters there to basically block the cars from going over the curb, so we will be purchasing those, they're like 1,500 pounds each. Gonna be putting them 8 feet apart, and then the school can plant whatever they want in there, or they'll get with me and we'll go to the nursery and figure that out. The other place I want to do that is in front of the bleachers here at the high school, because there's no protection there from vehicles. So we're going to be purchasing those planters there to put along that stretch too, so.
Great idea.
Yeah.
Because by the
back
cafeteria in the high school, that's fine, because you've got the building, right?
Yeah, and it's got a decent sized
Right.
curve, so, it's a little different. I mean, at some point, maybe we can put some billiards or planters there, but I think it's got a higher curve, and I think it's more The problem is with ACC, it's just the way, when you
Straight,
turn into that,
straight
it's like
in.
a straight,
Right.
yeah. And then here, there's, it's just, there's really nothing there at the bleacher site, so.
We have student drivers.
Well, that's,
And grandparents.
well, years ago, I don't know if anybody,
Yeah, maybe the
remembers,
parents
there was a parent that was driving with his daughter.
That's right.
And she stepped on the accelerator up in Coleman Hill and went through 2 of our classrooms and took down the walls in the classroom. The cement walls outside.
Wow.
So it could just be somebody's.
Oh, yeah, it's usually
yeah,
what it
so,
is,
yeah,
right, yeah.
So, yes, so,
Crazy.
Any other questions for Steve? Okay.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Steve.
Steve.
thank you.
And
Thank you.
Trish Boyne, transportation.
All right, so transportation is now settled into our nice new office, and we're very grateful for that. Steve's continuing to help us out with that there. Transportation transports approximately 2,500 students. There's a lot of our work is done outside of the district. We transport to 25 different private and parochial schools and 22 schools that provide special education classes for our students, which in those cases, we may travel up to 50 miles one way to those classes. We have 38 schools that we have to be at between 7:45 and 8:15 in the morning. So it takes a lot of planning and a lot of efficient use of the vehicles that we have. We have 83 vehicles right now, which consist of 32 big buses, 42 vans, and 7 minivans or small vehicles. We seem to be moving towards the smaller vehicles now just because of the out-of-district transportation that we do. It's a more economical way to transport those students.
Trish, can you describe the laws about transporting these out-of-district kids?
As well, SED requires that we do it. 15 miles for private and parochial, up to 15 miles from their residence to the school for private and parochial schools, and up to 50 for special ed place students.
How many special ed placements are we transporting beyond the 15 to 15 and the 50?
Beyond the
Between the
15
15
up
and the
to
50,
50.
yeah. It's not a fair, you should have
I
been
would
alerted to the
say
question.
definitely, I could think of 4 off the top of my head, okay?
Are they
It's a long drive to school.
same vans or different vans are used?
Different.
And how many students are in those vans?
Usually 1 or 2, yeah. Yeah, we have, that's why we're getting a lot of the minivans now, to be able to do that.
And
And
if
the,
they
um,
live more than 15 miles, I've heard they can be dropped off at HEC at like a.
Correct,
depot?
correct. State Education Department requires that if you are more than 15 miles and you have what's called an anchor student, somebody that is within that mileage limit, and we have to provide a bus to that school, another student that lives outside that mileage limit can piggyback and basically meet us at a meeting point and take the bus to school.
So once that anchor student leaves, then the child who lives more than 15 miles
Is not
has to
supposed to
find.
be able to have transportation.
So it's only if that other child is gone.
Right, that anchor student, right.
And just one logistical question. So our fleet that does Byram Hills
Mhm.
starts off in the morning for high school, middle school, and then they're kind of turning around and doing the elementary schools. For this kids that are being bused out of district, is it a completely separate fleet or is there some overlap? Or
There is some overlap.
And is the timing of most of those trips in the middle of the span of time? Is there-
Yes, yeah.
Because the reason that I bring up the question, it's really an interesting,
It's a
potentially problematic issue, is there's more and more discussion in the county around later start times. And I've heard that there are a couple of districts that have seriously explored the matter, because we all, like from a health standpoint, it's helpful for students, but where they sometimes run into issues is in this exact place, where the out-of-district busing is sort of taking up the resources in the heart of the time of when you push the start times.
Absolutely. We, like I said, we have 38 schools that we have to be at between 7:45 and 8:15 in the morning. We have a half an hour span that we have to be at 38 different schools.
Because they have a later start time.
Yes, right.
And is there ever any way, since we have so many districts that are really kind of close to us, and is there any type of sharing?
In the past, there could have been. What we're finding, especially in this area, is that many of the school districts are choosing to contract out their services, and there is no way that we can share because you can't break down the expense and share it that way. They won't, for insurance purposes and other purposes, they won't share. And we also have the afternoon too. We have 26 different schools that we have to be at, during that peak time of 2:30, 3 o'clock is a big time too for us. So we're very stretched at those times, trying to find people to do all of that.
So the districts that don't have busing, like Pleasantville, how do they don't provide the transportation for their special ed?
Oh, they do. They
We still have
contract
to,
it.
okay.
We have Bronxville, which is 1 square mile.
Right. Right. Generally, with the smaller ones, or they will have public transportation available to the students if, city busing or.
Do we have enough drivers? Is that
At
an
this
issue?
point, yes, we do. No, we're very fortunate at this point that we don't need them. We have 2 that are retiring, and I don't foresee a problem replacing them over the summer. So, but we do have, like I said, 83 vehicles at this point, and we transport almost 900 athletic and field trips every year. So we do an awful lot of that, which is a great, big use of our resources in the afternoon. So in the afternoon, we have more drivers. We call in hourly drivers to help us in the afternoon. So we have 57 regular drivers, but we also utilize 8 hourly school bus drivers that come in just in the afternoon, or if we need them, they'll come in to help out. We travel about 860,000 miles a year.
860,000.
And from a budget.
Back and forth to Florida.
That's more than my lease allows, I think.
The understanding that every summer you go through the exercise of the logistical question of like what time do you pick up what kid in what place. So there's always going to be a little bit of variation, but is there anything in the budget that is going to push pickup times earlier, other than these obviously random things that you have to work through logistically?
No, because the school district is fortunately close, the houses are close enough together that there isn't that much of a variance. You're not going to see, well, I have now a half a mile between this student and that student, so now that's going to add time that I don't have for that bus. It doesn't really happen too much in Armonk because we are more of a closely packed community as far as the houses go. Yeah, it's only 17 square miles. The school district is not very big space-wise, so.
Feels like
It feels so much bigger.
when you're living in Bedford and you're
driving to
has a friend in Thornwood.
How's the shape of the buses now? Are they in good shape?
The buses, actually, our maintenance team is really great at what they do. We've got 3 mechanics and a head mechanic. And last year, our DOT pass rate was 99.4%.
That's amazing.
That's great.
So they work really hard, and part of that is having the access to the newer buses, because the big buses don't last that long. 8 to 10 years is normal, small buses about 10 to 12, and we are looking to replace them as they age out.
And what about capacity for the middle school and high school? Are they full, the buses, or?
No. And that's something that, we would like to see students riding the buses. The yellow school bus is the safest form of transportation. It would be much better safety-wise for the students to be on the bus than having their parents drive them, or when they get to high school, them driving themselves to school. So having the students on the buses is much safer for them to get to school.
Some initiative around, enticing kids to take the bus and that. That's like a PR. I think a small PR effort around that would be a good thing. So, I don't know,
Open the Byram beam on the bus.
All right, with Mike Sanders.
Maybe the happy face parent one year.
That's great.
So, just a quick question on diesel and fuel purchases. Looks like you have a decline.
Yes.
For next year. Is
Yes.
that, do you prepay any of that? Is there negotiated, or that's just a estimate of?
We belong to a fuel consortium.
Okay.
In Westchester and Rockland County, and they bring down the prices a little. But predominantly, the reason for the decline is partially the price of fuel has gone down a little bit over the previous years. And also the fact that we're using more smaller vehicles. We're making more economical choices as far as the type of vehicles that we're running.
Great.
And then it looks like you're budgeting pretty flat for new vehicles.
Yes, well,
One big bus
for
and
this
a few
year, for this year, because it seems to be that we're replacing more of the big buses with the smaller buses, but we don't want to do that too much because we have to give ourselves that option of, in case we have a large group of students in one area, now we need to be able to have that larger vehicle to transport them. We also need the larger vehicles for a lot of the athletic trips, especially the undercarriage storage they like with the sports equipment. It keeps the kids safe so they don't have all of these loose objects inside the bus with them. So, also speaking about safety, that the drivers and school bus monitors are mandated for at least 4 hours of safety training every year. In addition to that, the drivers are also required to pass a medical physical. They have to pass a written exam every 2 years, and a behind the wheel test every 2 years, and a defensive driving test every year. And then the monitors and the drivers both have to pass a physical performance test every 2 years, showing us that they are physically capable of getting off of the bus quickly in an emergency and evacuating other students as well.
And we still have videos on the bus.
Oh, yes, video cameras. That's one thing where some of them are very old systems, and I'm looking to upgrade also the number of cameras we have, because some of the buses only have one camera that goes front to back, and that's it, and it really won't tell you what's happening in the back of the bus. So my goal is in the big buses to try to have 4 cameras in the bus. One that goes out the front of the bus so you can see what's happening out the windshield, one over the stairwell and the driver to see the driver and anybody trying to maybe get on the bus, and one from back and one to front. And for the big buses, also one in the center, because it's difficult to see what's going on in the middle of the bus sometimes.
Do they record sound?
Yes, they do have sound.
Do any of them have the multiple?
Yes, the newer ones, yeah. And there's also an initiative in the state at this point to have what's called a stop arm camera put on, which when the stop sign comes out, when the buses stop to load and unload, there will be a camera placed on that stop sign so that if anybody runs the bus reds, they're on film. And we can then.
Awesome.
Wow, we should.
So there is an initiative going on through the legislature.
Shocking
right now.
how often that happens.
Right.
Shocking.
It happens over 50,000 times a day in New York
Absolutely.
State.
I see it. I see people speeding past the
It
school
doesn't
buses
matter where
every
you are.
day.
That's why those cars have those little things on the license plate, so you can't read
Right.
them.
The cameras are not, they're recording,
Yes.
but no one's watching it, correct?
No, we cannot watch it live.
That'd be a big room you'd need for that.
Yeah, right, and a lot of eyes. It's a lot of data to take in,
The
so.
situation room.
So our moms can take a break. They've been taking pictures of license plates of people, and they post them on our moms.
So, yeah, so hopefully.
In the future budget, we'll have the autonomous Tesla bus, right?
Actually, next week I was thinking about, they have electric school buses, and I was going to go look at one perhaps next week down in Long Island.
Sure.
Worth booking.
I think we tried one at one time.
Yeah, that was an old one. I was told it couldn't go up the hill.
Yeah.
Things have changed.
That was
since then.
before the smartphone, though, so, you know.
Right. Things have come a long way. It's a lawnmower. So, and in addition, in accordance with DOT rules, there is random drug and alcohol screenings done for all of our bus drivers. So as far as the budget line, the only big change you might see is under the contractual and other line is a significant increase, mostly due to an adjustment based on the workers' compensation insurance. Previously, it was a very low amount that was not realistic, and that was addressed this year.
Why is BOCES services down 84%?
Because we don't, in the past, we used BOCES services for classroom training of our drivers and monitors. Every new driver is required to take a 30-hour course. Monitors are required to take a 10-hour course, and we do that in-house now.
Ah, good.
Great, all right. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Well done.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for getting all our kids home from school.
Yeah, right, that's what I was gonna ask you.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna talk about revenue now, but we will thank you for your time here and for your budgets, and appreciate it, and we'll let you leave, so you don't, unless you wanna listen to our revenue.
Thank you so much. Great
Thank
job,
you. Have a
everyone.
good night. So that's moving us on now to projected revenues and tax rates, how we're going to pay for this.
Yeah, Jim will give us these projected tax rates, the moment we've all been waiting for. And tonight happens to be a night where we can receive comments from the public, but nobody's here.
Well, maybe we have, this
Maybe.
gentleman may want to talk.
But he doesn't live in this town.
That's true.
And tonight, we also have an opportunity for Board of Ed member requests for any further information regarding changes to the budget. No further
Okay.
ado, the moment we're all waiting for.
All right, as was mentioned, this is our third budget hearing. Going forward, we have a couple more. April 17th is budget hearing 4, April 24th, the budget adoption, the mandatory budget hearing number 5 on May 8th, and then we vote on May 15th. So those are the important dates going forward. This presentation of the revenues tonight. Current budget is $90,590,000. We're looking at a proposed increase of 1.94%, as we mentioned before, and we're looking at a tax levy which is lower than the tax levy cap, and I'll show you how that works out in just a second. This slide you've seen before. We have to present our budget in 3 parts, program, capital, and administrative. And again, you'll notice the program is the lion's share of the budget, $64.4 million. Almost 70% of the total budget addresses our program. What does the budget include? As was mentioned before, all the programs and services that we're currently running, our mandates from the state and federal government, athletic programs, extracurricular programs, the transportation that was just mentioned a few minutes ago, and any of the programs that we've been running since 1997, those can be viewed on our website. In terms of the estimated revenue, again, you can see the largest piece of the pie here is the property tax. It amounts to about 88% of the total revenues. We do have other pieces that come in. The fund balance appropriation hasn't changed much in a couple of years. State aid, we are seeing, we have budgeted for an increase in state aid. Other revenues stay about the same, and payment in lieu of taxes, you'll see on the next slide, has gone down significantly. This slide breaks out the changes. Real property tax, including the star, we're looking at a 3.4% increase in levy. That's not the tax rate, that's not the tax bill, that's the tax levy. That's the piece that we raise, that's the total pie that we need to raise in order to support our budget this year. Payment in lieu of taxes, as I mentioned, has gone down. Swiss Re had a pilot, payment in lieu of taxes. That is no longer, they're no longer a pilot, their assessed value went on to the tax rolls for the town of North Castle. So when you look at the full value later on in the presentation here, you'll notice a significant increase in the full value for North Castle because we have a significant increase in the assessed value. The other revenues include things like sales tax, tuition, interest, BOCES refund, and unclassified, and that stayed about the same, a very slight decrease that we're showing there. State aid, you can see a fairly large increase, and before when the governor's budget first came out, I mentioned that there would be about a $7,000 increase. The district has been pretty conservative budgeting state aid because as most districts, we really don't trust what the state tells us. We're going to get state aid. So the district has budgeted conservatively and it's paid off. We are continuing to budget conservatively, but feel that we are budgeting more closely to what we actually are going to receive in state aid. So you see a fairly large increase in our budget here for revenue. And the fund balance, appropriated fund balance, that stays the same as last year. And as we did current year. As we did this current year, we are using some of the insurance reserve to help with our appropriated fund balance.
Is that typical, Jim, that fund balance appropriation would be identical, or?
Most times, districts do try to keep that the same. Now, there are instances where we are appropriating money here that's used to help offset the debt service payments in the district. When that debt service matures, when the bond matures, and we no longer have that debt service payment, then you'll probably see the fund balance, the appropriated fund balance drop pretty significantly, maybe down to $800,000 or $900,000. Okay, so, but from one year to the next, you try to maintain about the same level of fund balance. Okay. This is a hard one for the community to see. It will be on the website. This is the actual property tax levy cap calculation. And it's a formula that the state hands us, and then they hand us all the pieces that go into the formula. We just plug them in and run the formula. Two major changes here that I'll point out is the second line down, your tax-based growth factor. That's the bricks and mortars. Last year it was a 0.71%. This year it's a 1.106%. So you can see it's a fairly nice increase in the tax-based growth factor. About the 10th line down, you'll see the CPI, 2%, lesser of the CPI or 2%, and it is 2% this year, which is an increase over the 1.26 last year. So again, these factors both generate a larger maximum allowable tax levy. Down toward the bottom of the calculation, you'll see the maximum allowable tax levy is 4.59% increase, $82.1 million. We're proposing a tax levy of $81.2 million, or 3.42%, as I had mentioned before. So the difference here being about $920,000, and I'll show you how that plays out in another slide here. This slide, actually, the tax levy cap components. We showed you this one before, and now it's been updated with the 18-19 projection here. And as you can see, the very bottom right figure there, the minus 920, okay, that's money that we would be eligible to collect as a result of our maximum tax cap, but we're not collecting because we don't need the money to fund the budget. And that's happened the last several years. You can look at each of the 5 years prior to that. The district has always raised less than what they've been allowed to by the tax cap, which is very responsible. You're raising the money that you need to support the budget, but not additional money. And it's sometimes difficult. Districts do get in the habit of, the state almost is pushing you into going to the maximum each year, because that's your step-off point for the following year. So the district here has been very responsible. The community support for this, I think, has been pretty, if you look at the budget vote results, I think you're doing the right thing here. And then just looking at the main component in the tax cap is the CPI, and you can see how that's varied over the past years. Started out back in 13-14, 1.95, 16-17, a 0.12, and that's where districts are getting into trouble. It's very difficult to try to maintain program when your maximum levy is not increasing that much. And then back up to a 2 or 9 points. This is a net figure, so it's 1.98, but the CPI is 2 this year. And you'll notice on the graph there, the red bar, the pilots is significantly higher. It's been under the 0%, so it's been a negative the last 5 years. It's a positive this year. It's an inverse, okay? As the pilot amount goes up each year, okay, that's less that you can increase your levy, so that serves as a negative variance. This year, because of the significant drop in the pilot, we had to increase the levy to offset that. So you can see that the pilot plays a significantly larger component in the calculation here.
Big change.
The fund balance, this also is a very interesting chart. You can see that most of the fund balance is restricted. Restricted is outlined down below, the tax certs, insurance reserve, retirement contributions, and what have you. Total fund balance has gone up over the last couple of years. The district voters did approve a capital reserve, and you can see that, 0 for the 4 years prior, 16, 17. When it was approved, we have transferred money into that reserve now. We started out at the beginning of the year with, I think, $1.4 million. So June 2017, when they closed out the 16-17 year, we had $1.4 million in that reserve. And then the board increased that by the $2.5 million this year, the resolution to increase the capital reserve and reduce the retirement contributions. So overall, you can see that reserves are healthy in the district. And going forward, again, it's very important to really plan fund balance going forward because some districts, when you're not doing the planning, you have these peaks and valleys. If you don't have fund balance from one year to the next to appropriate the assigned fund balance, then you have to make it up somehow, and that's could be an increase in taxes or what have you. So the district has done an outstanding job maintaining fund balance over the years.
So Jim, would the reduction in the insurance reserve balance would go hand in hand with the increase of the cost of those insurance premiums each year, growing at a dramatic rate, right? So we had over $10 million of restricted funds down to 6.5 or so.
Well, the insurance reserve actually was set up a number of years ago, and it really hasn't been used for insurance as much as it has to help offset the debt service payments. So the decrease that you see over the a couple of years there has been a result of appropriating money to help offset the debt service. Did we have a chart in here? We had a chart before in one of the other budget presentations that showed how much of the debt service we budget for and how much is offset by the reserves, and this is the reserve that we've used to help offset that.
Okay. Is there a concern that that reserve is typically for insurance, and that with that fund balance declining like that, is that something we need to focus on going forward?
I think just looking at the total reserves, I think, and the district has a plan for the retirement contributions. I think we do need to reduce that. I think the board took a real good first step, moving $2.5 million from that reserve into the capital reserve. Okay, the insurance reserve, I think going forward, again, it's a reserve that has not really been impacted for insurance. It's not for health insurance. Okay, it's for the property insurance or items that are not covered by the property insurance. So if you have a loss that's you have a large deductible, you can pay for that out of here. So I think working that down, I think that's the appropriate thing to do also. I think total reserves again of over $20 million. I think that's very good for the district. Some areas may be a little bit too high, but we have a plan as we move forward to reduce some of those. So I think, again, the district has been very responsible over the years in maintaining a fairly consistent fund balance, even though it has increased over the last couple of years. I think maybe you work it down a little bit going forward, and I think we'll be fine.
And then the other factor is whether or not we get the TRS reserve legislation, because if we do, then that's a logical place for some of the 7.16 million.
Where we need it.
Exactly.
We desperately need it because we know that TRS is going to be a liability in the future in terms of use of cash. If that doesn't happen, then we're precluded from saving that.
And TRS, obviously our salary base over $30 million versus our non-instructional salary base of $4 or $5 million. It's significantly higher, so there's more volatility in that area. So absolutely, if the state allows us to do that, and I know the School Board Association has been pushing for that for the last couple of years, if the state allowed us to do that, then absolutely that would be a great place to transfer some of this money into the reserve to handle those peaks and valleys a little bit better. Apportionment of taxes, I won't say too much about this. The slides will be on the website, but just a couple of comments on how it happens. One, we find the full value for each town. We compare that town full value to the district full value to find out how much of the levy each town is responsible for. We take that levy and then divide by the assessed value in the town. That gives us a tax rate, and then we use that tax rate times the individual's assessed value property value in order to come up with the tax bill. So it's the most important thing to walk away with this is, again, it's not the increase in the tax levy. You hear a tax levy increase 3.42, you hear the maximum tax cap at 4 point something. Those numbers are fine, but the focus is on the tax rate, because that's what actually generates your tax bill. And then just flipping forward, we'll go, I'll show you how that's impacting us here. In terms of the full value, though, there are some interesting points here. This is our full value pie chart, and you notice the blue here is North Castle. North Castle makes up the lion's share of the full value in the district. Mount Pleasant second, and then we have tiny pieces of Bedford and also Newcastle. Greg pointed out, I looked at his presentation last year, he pointed out that you know, if you look at a $100 tax bill, that basically North Castle is picking up $86.18 of that $100. So again, the lion's share, and it's very obvious here from the chart. This shows the trend by town, and this is an interesting slide. I know the community will not be able to see this. The scale, be careful looking at the scale. The bars all look about the same height here, but the scales are considerably different. Just you have to look at the scale in order to interpret the main reason we show this is to show the trend by town for the full value. And you can see North Castle, as I said, increased significantly. Well, we had a large increase in the assessed value, which means large increase in the full value, and that was a result of the Swiss Re coming on to the roll. The other ones you can see have increased a little bit also. The tax rate, this is what I said, this is the critical part. This is what generates your tax bill, and you can see the dollar change, and you can also see the percent change. North Castle, our largest town, 1.67% increase in the tax rate. Newcastle and Bedford both had decreases in the tax rate, and Mount Pleasant had an increase in the tax rate of 1.14%. Okay, and these vary because of equalization rates and changes in assessed values. It's just, you know, the way when you see a negative like that, you go, how did you get a negative? How come we don't all have negative?
Well, when you see the next slide, you'll see them go up and down and up and down.
That was the way John Grimes all complained about Mount Pleasant.
That's right.
And the next slide, yes, it shows the variation, and again, a lot of the variation is due to changes in the assessed value, which the district really has no control over, and also changes in the equalization rate, which the state gives us, the district has no control. So again, it's pretty much we plug in the information that we get from the state and from the assessors and generate the tax rate.
This is important to look at. If you look at Bedford alone from 14-15 to 15-16, you go down 6.79% and then up 12.43% in the course of the year.
So essentially, the residents of North Castle should have approximately a 1.67% increase in their tax bill.
In their tax bill, yes. Yep. And these are estimates at this point. I will point that out because it's not final until, you know, it's final. That'll be later on in the year. I think last year, we came back in September and showed you what the actual rates were, and they did vary a little bit, but insignificantly. So I would expect them to be very close to this. If there's if there's some change in the assessed value, they may pop up or down a little bit, but I think it's going to be pretty close to this. But the variations, like just pointed out, you went from a minus 6.79 in Bedford to a plus 12.43. Just a quick story. I was working in Pine Bush, 3 counties, 7 towns, and 1 town had a minus 3%. Our largest town had a minus 3% tax rate. The third largest town had a 45.6% tax rate increase, and it was all due to the change in the equalization rate and assessed values in the town. We had over 250 people showed up at the board meeting when we presented
that. Never happened.
One of the scariest board meetings I ever had in my life.
That's not funny for anyone.
No, it was, it was happening to several of the districts in Orange County too. Monroe Woodbury had an issue with it.
Yep,
Pine Bush had an issue with it. Goshen. So.
I was asked to consult on that.
Tax value, or true value tax rates, this slide is an interesting one. This actually,
That's my favorite one.
yeah. This gives you actually a good comparison between districts, because again, towns are all assessing at different levels and what have you. The state gives you an equalization rate. If you convert the assessed value to a full value and a full value tax rate, it's actually a comparison. You can't compare assessed value tax rate by town, because they're all, they're assessing differently. Full value is a good comparison, and you can see ours, $13.48 per thousand. Of the 53 districts in the Putnam, Northern, Westchester, BOCES clearinghouse, we are 46, and that's a good thing. The
We've
higher
pretty
your
much been
number,
right there for many, many years now.
the higher the number, the better. You don't want to be number one. That's the highest tax rate per thousand. We're one of the lowest. There's only about 7 districts that are lower than we are. And graphically, it looks like that. So you
I
can
love
see
this.
all the districts.
This one's my favorite.
All the districts to the left are higher than us, and there's just a few that are actually lower than us. So it's, again, the district has done a great job in maintaining budget, tax rates, and what have you. And we have, again, our proposed budget is a 1.94% increase. The tax levy, 3.42. Don't let that scare you. We should look at the tax rates. Again, it says tax rates vary. North Castle 1.67, Mount Pleasant 1.14, Newcastle and Bedford both had a minus, and those are the important numbers, the tax rate. And that's a nice picture of our high school students.
Very children.
Love it. Good, thanks, that was great.
That was really good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.
Does anybody have any
So thorough.
questions or comments for Jim?
Very well done.
Very well done, thank you very much. So any other
You getting paid for that?
considerations, anybody, for any other questions on the budget? Any other considerations? No. Comments from the public? This is budget hearing number 3. This last time the public can express additions or deletions to the budget. Hearing none. Any board members request for further information on the budget? Changes to the budget? Okay. The
Working
budget
with-
steps from here, we should go into that again, even though we talked about it, just to follow up, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the next meeting we have is April 17th, and that is going to be budget hearing 4. At that time, any changes or the board or community had made, we would look at it at that time. And then April 24th, the board will adopt the budget. And then on May 8th, budget hearing 5, where this is required, mandated, that the budget will be communicated again to the public, but at that point, it's already adopted by the Board of Ed. And then the budget vote takes place May 15th, and that's from 6:30 to 9 o'clock at HC Crittenden. Okay, officially closing budget hearing 3. And that brings us to unfinished business, and we're going to transpose 10.2, 10.1, so that we can talk first about the review of the policies. Is that okay, everybody? Okay, then can I have a motion to adopt as a first read policy 5280, which is athletics?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Jen, did you want to?
Yeah, so
Press?
we've spent a considerable amount of time, mostly Dr. Kaltenecker, in working with Rob to look at the language to make sure that a few things are important to us. The language in there that guarantees that these children who may be able to now try out for junior varsity level and varsity level positions, whether in non-contact sports for a 7th grader or contact sports for an 8th grader, that we keep the rigorous guidelines that we had before regarding medical readiness to play and emotional readiness to play as well. So those have been preserved in there, and I think what these opportunities give us a chance to have kids be in more competitive situations when they can. So I think the language very much reflects that.
Great.
I think another key aspect, which Rob and Chris felt strongly about, and the board felt strongly about, is that 7th and 8th grade students who do qualify will not take the place of a high school student who's eligible.
Right.
And we specified that clearly in the policy.
So again, the emphasis, the big change is that now, before they could only, if they could play varsity, now
JV or a freshman
freshman.
team.
So that's
If
the
there's
big
one.
change,
Right,
yeah.
that's the big change.
And before it was 8th grade, now it's 7th and
Well,
Seventh grade always do it
play
the
down
same
same
way.
way.
Non-contact.
Non-contact, not
Non-contact.
non-contact,
Yeah.
right. You guys did a great job on this, I have to say.
8th. It was clear.
Very clean, Tim.
I think you did a very nice job on it. I'm still not sure if I'm going to support it, but I do think it was very well considered and thought out in terms of the principle. I understand the thinking that goes behind having 8th graders play on junior varsity. You know, I understand this district may be one of the outlier districts that does not allow it for the reasons that have been expressed in prior meetings. There is a philosophy behind that I think it was well considered when it was adopted, but, you know, I wouldn't be much of a board member if I wasn't willing to re-examine things in this light and see whether or not it's appropriate to vary it. I have a concern that, I know we're saying that an 8th grader cannot take the spot of a high school student on a JV team, but an 8th grader certainly can take playing time away from a 9th, 10th, or 11th grader on a team. I don't know if I'm crazy about that either. But I think this is certainly a subject that's ripe for discussion, and I'm thankful to you, Tim, for all the work you put into it to give us a very well-written policy to consider.
Thank you. I'll thank Chris Walsh and Rob
And
Costello
Rob
as
too,
well,
yes.
and Kim
I
Lappel.
just
who
have
all
a
put our heads together.
I may just have a philosophical difference to it.
So, you know, as I'm looking at this as a parent who might look at it online and trying to understand what it is, I like the intent of the way this is written. I think it's great, and my comments are just really just to make it a little bit clearer. Do you think that where it says athletic placement process, where we have the title, where we're talking about this, should we have for 7th and 8th grade students? Because as people are looking at this, there's not really a definition for what the athletic placement process is. We go into what we're doing for it, but without really an explanation of what the definition is. I think that that would be helpful.
Under
You're saying
athletic
middle
placement
school?
process.
Just under athletic placement
But it's
process,
not
maybe
middle
for
schools,
7th and 8th grade
just
students,
7th and 8th.
and then a definition
Right.
needing
It's
to
not
be
six,
there.
right,
What is
it's
the
not
athletic
six.
placement process? Because it sounds like, if you're a parent who's not sure of this, it sounds like this is how we place, you know, athletes and anything, but this is a particular thing.
Well, isn't the
From
athletic
section
placement
1.
process the second paragraph?
Right.
Isn't that really what we're talking about?
That it
Yeah.
is, but as it's written there, it's not really a definition. It's because you go into all participants for the athletic placement process, but we didn't really define what the athletic placement
Well,
process is.
why can't we say all participants in the athletic placement process must qualify for the appropriate level of competition, period? The athletic placement process, the athletic placement process requires that
What is the athletic placement
It
process?
says it here, it says
physical
it's,
fitness testing, sports skill evaluation, and medical clearance.
The athletic placement process is, it's defined by section 1, is that correct? Or
It's defined by New York State.
New York State law. So what is their definition of it? I'm just saying, like, I'm looking at it as a parent who's looking at this, it's not clear what this is. There's probably like a
A little
definition.
definition
There
somewhere
is.
that can be in the first
We have
sentence.
that from the state.
Right, I mean,
Yeah.
if it's not too wordy, I just think to clarify, because.
And to say athletic placement process for 7th and 8th, for eligible 7th and 8th graders,
Exactly.
would make it clear to me when I'm reading that,
Mhm.
otherwise I might think that I
Because
said.
people aren't going to know. I mean,
Okay.
maybe it's a
They
term.
don't have to be
Top.
exceptional anymore, Michael. That's the whole point. They won't have to be, they're not going to, you're not going to, this is not for the exceptional 8th grade athlete any. You don't have to be an exceptional 8th grade athlete perhaps to qualify for junior varsity.
That's fair.
So the
You
New
don't have
York,
to be
True, it
exceptional.
probably shouldn't be the word exceptional.
I wouldn't, I'm
But I
thinking-
thought we said exceptional was a word that was part of this, came down from New York State, isn't it?
I would say athletic is for the 8th
that
grade
word-
athlete in all sports and the 7th grade athlete. I mean, the word exceptional just doesn't belong there.
But that
I
word
think
is not
it's
our word,
eligible.
that word isn't
Well,
that word
Eligible.
that was
Yeah.
part of New York State?
Well, it's exceptional
I
in the
think-
sense that they passed all the
That they have to be able to
tests,
play to
But that's-
check
that
your
doesn't make an
varsity level.
exception.
About that, what
But
about
that
they're
doesn't-
eligible, it's really eligible,
But
right?
anyone is eligible though,
In
like
the
any
Wait,
7th, 8th grader
let's
can try out.
Talk to
Try
it.
out.
Let's let Rob
Yeah.
talk to us, because I remember you talked to us about this last
And it's
time.
also because the fitness level, the test has changed over the years. New York State just implemented new testing standards. So I do think that the word exceptional is appropriate for us to use. Also because the fitness test that is given is not for, it's not for the athlete at the middle school level, the average athlete to pass that fitness test. It's above average. It is exceptional that they're put in a situation and they have to respond to those circumstances. And the test is there for that reason. And they did make the test more rigorous.
Yeah.
Does it really need to be defined as it comes down from New York State, or is that too?
I'll take a
ridiculous?
closer look at
Yeah,
it
we
with
can.
Dr. Kaltenecker, and we can take a closer look at that.
All right, and then when we're saying for the exceptional 8th grade athlete in all sports, should we say in all sports offered to Byram Hill students in the freshman, junior varsity, and university? Because it's not all
Well, if
sports.
freshman, junior varsity, and varsity sports by definition are the sports we offer.
Well, I think what
No,
Robin's
what I'm
saying is
saying
sports
is-
offered for
Right.
freshmen, because we don't have a freshman
Bowling
right
team.
now football team.
Right,
Bowling,
well,
right.
well,
Just because
all
I'm going to say,
sports.
well, no, I'm just saying, because if you read it like that, you could say, well, it's for all sports, so I want
I want a freshman.
bowling team.
well, you can say all sports offered.
Offered in the
Put the
Byram
word
Hills.
offered after
yeah,
the word
yeah.
sports.
Offered to the Byram Hills students in the freshman, junior varsity, and varsity.
Well, in all,
programs.
no, you don't have to be that wordy.
Well, it's
The
already there,
exceptional
I'm just
8th grade
saying.
in all sports offered for freshman, junior varsity, and varsity.
Offered
For.
to Byram Hills students,
Well, who else is this going to?
because all sports, otherwise it's all,
All sports
in all
offered.
sports for freshmen, junior varsity, and varsity. We don't necessarily have a freshman football team.
That's what I'm not fighting with you. For the exceptional 8th grade athlete in all sports offered for freshman, junior varsity, and varsity. Just need the word offered in there.
He's just saying you don't need to.
Yeah, that's fine, as long as it's clear
It's
that
assumed
it's
it's
Byram
Byram
Hills
Hills.
student, offered to the Byram Hills students, that's
Well,
fine.
Who else is coming?
Okay. Um, Anything, let's see.
I think that when Mike and I met with Jen and Tim on the athletic, or on the policy committee rather, sorry, we felt that this is really in line with the culture of the community presently, that we're losing a lot of students to club teams, and this is opening up a lot of avenues for the type of athlete that wants to be competitive at this age, and it would help, channel their energies hopefully to high school and keep them in and engaged, because they're doing this in, they're taking other avenues, so we felt that this was important, and, that's just something to look
Sure.
at.
I understand that point. That's a
Yeah.
valid point. I'm not, well, it's a valid point. Whether the 8th grade athlete's exceptional or not, if they do qualify for this program and they do get on a freshman team, I'm really less concerned about that than the junior varsity team.
Right.
And I'm sorry, I just have significant problems giving an 8th grade athlete the opportunity to take playtime away from a 9th, 10th, or 11th grader. I just have problems with it. I think we're a public high school. Everybody waits their turn. You come to the high school and you qualify for JV. You play great. If you're an 8th grader and the coach likes you and you're taking playing time away from a freshman or sophomore or junior, I'm not so sure that's the right thing to do. I think varsity has always been different. The theory behind varsity is best players play, and I'm not here to quibble with that. But that's
Yeah,
not.
We are having issues now with the smaller class sizes, and the community came and spoke, I believe. They were saying, listen, we can't even field these modified teams and some of the JV teams. We don't have feeder teams for some of these varsity teams. And maybe when we become more robust, we revisit this policy. But we're really not having feeders.
And I think just adding something there that our responsibility to the district is to review these policies and continue to monitor them. I don't think anything's written in stone going forward. And I think we've had recommendations by the athletic director and admin, administration on this, and we've had a lot of dialogue. So I think we're right where we need to be on this policy today.
We're one of the few schools who's not doing this in our community.
Right.
also.
I hear what I was saying, and I agree with what he's saying. You know what? There was a time when we were so robust where, okay, you have to wait your turn. But I'm watching as these younger classes are coming through, and we cannot field these feeder teams. So we're now going to lose varsity experience because some of them aren't going to club sports, and some of them are just giving up and not getting involved.
And for me, I think I go back to what we were talking about before with student athlete, right? That's the program that we want. And I believe it's a program that we hopefully aspire to and meet the expectations of. And we emphasize student athlete. If we can continue to encourage students to play in the school, I think that's a positive thing. And I think just given where we are, in a combination of the two factors, the declining enrollment, but in addition to that, just the reality of club sports, that this is a step in the right direction in terms of trying to encourage more participation in Byram Hills athletics and trying to do it in a safe way through the APP. So I feel comfortable, even though I take your point that nothing's perfect and there are always going to be some unintended consequences, and it could mean that on the margin in some cases, playing time could be compromised.
If there's no field to team, if there's no team to field, they're not getting any playing time.
Well, that's right. I mean, in theory, if this works the way it's supposed to, that won't be the issue, but we have to, obviously, you'll be vigilant to make sure that.
Yeah, and I think that's the point I wanted to make was where we are on this policy, but I think we all need to monitor this as a steward of our children and safety. And if we need to change it in a year from now, not that we want to be going through policy changes like this, but it has to be evaluated.
And the community will tell us, we will hear if the letter of this is
Well, I'm not sure who you're going to hear from, frankly, on this.
We'll hear from
Other than
parents.
parents who want their kids
That's what
playing.
I'm talking about.
So the next step will be probably coming back and saying, we clearly want certain varsity participation, but if they're good enough, they should play it. I hear the arguments, and I'm not telling you they don't make sense. I'm not saying these are insane arguments you're advancing. I don't know how many teams are really in the likelihood of folding if we don't have 8th graders playing in them. I don't know. I mean, how many teams are likely to fold next year in the absence of 8th graders?
There's no JV softball.
Well, recently we've had difficulty with JV girls basketball, JV field hockey. We presently have concerns with JV girls lacrosse at this time.
Today they played
this
one
season.
man
Well,
down
how many
because
exceptional, using your word, how many exceptional 8th graders are expected to make this JV team?
Well, and I think that varies from year to year. It depends on the athletes that are there, so it's hard to predict that.
You could lose the team anyway, because these kids who the parents think are exceptional may not in fact be statutorily exceptional.
I don't know that the process is to field a team. I think it's explicit that that's not allowed.
Well, that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing the benefit of this.
I think the
is
benefit
to-
is that we are losing students to these outside teams because they do not have the opportunity to be competitive here, unlike all but 3 other school districts in our division, correct?
The programs offered by a public high school will never match the competitive nature of the club teams.
I'd have to disagree with you.
In the sports I've seen, a JV program that is going to match the competitiveness of a true club team where you basically say this is where you're going to be playing your sports, I have a hard time agreeing with that.
It depends on the district, number one, but you look at baseball, for example, here, which became a extremely robust program, which wasn't so robust in the past. I think there's a lot of reasons for that, but part of it is that we have to try something different The community's been asking for it, we've got coaches asking for it,
And our
and we have a
athletic
policy
director is asking for it,
recommended.
and
Yeah,
our
exactly,
superintendent.
and we have a policy recommended by the administration around that. So my point to you in being respectful on a lot of fronts, because I do very much hear what you're saying, is we, as a board, we've got to monitor that and look at it again. And that's, I think that's the
need to
best, I
assess.
think that's where we are.
So why don't we put a mandatory 2-year review on this program and see where we are in 2 years?
But we should be reviewing it.
No, I think we should
We
review it
should
next
be
year.
reviewing it every
And have a
season.
mandatory, well, you're not gonna review every policy every year, so.
No, this certain
This
policy, we
then
should be
have a
reviewing every
mandatory
season.
window when the athletic director will come back and report to the superintendent on what's happened, what the numbers have been, to see whether, A, it's made a difference, and B, what difference it's really made.
And I would also ask
Then-
that
then I
the,
might want to have an evaluation of the historic policy and
right, it's-
what
yeah,
impact
yeah.
that's had on
Right.
us now.
But I would also
I think it's
ask,
kind of silly.
whoever
It's in
is
the air.
on the athletic advisory from our board, I would ask that their ears be, to the grind and just report back to us on what they're hearing. for
And
next
actually,
year,
we're just
too.
seeing that it's actually in the policy, I just looked over with Tim, that the district shall review the sports programs, program annually and report to the Board of Education.
Well, when you come to do your
right,
reports,
right,
at that point,
You'll let us
make
know.
sure that's a
That's
bullet.
part of it.
That's gotta be a bullet.
Absolutely. Right, because part of this is setting the policy, another part of it is managing the reality of the day-to-day, which obviously you're charged to do, not us, and so you'll come back and report to us if we move forward with
Please
this.
remember, I'm not coming at this as someone who's anti-athletics.
Never, no.
To the contrary.
No, you're
We understand.
I'm coming at this as someone
Yeah.
who's an enormous supporter of Byram Hills
But
athletics.
also, you don't want to move away from what this district built so hard to have us be a respectful,
I mean, this is
appropriate
clearly
student athlete. I
I
get
don't
it.
know if a seismic shift, but it's a significant shift in what we've done and what we've been very successful in doing, but different times may require different policies, so okay, this is what we're talking about.
All right, I want to tell you something that will warm your heart. Recently, some of the newer coaches told some of the freshman teams, or kids that from freshman, that your academics are more important. It's, your efforts to the team are very important, but your academics come first. And they're willing to play one man down, or they're willing to make accommodations for academics. So, they are hearing you that you're a student before you're an
That's
athlete.
clearly
Alright.
been the Byram Hills philosophy
So,
for time immemorial, as we say.
does anybody have any other questions or comments? Are we okay to take a vote for the first read? We still have a second read on this,
Yes.
okay?
Robin, can I just summarize what I'll look at in terms
Absolutely.
of this, which is one, defining the APP, and I have found language on the state website, so I'll
Okay.
work with Rob on that. Looking at the language around in all sports offered or offered in Byram Hills or something to that
Right.
degree, and then we'll consider the exceptional student, and just look at that language again.
I think that's
Let's
everything.
revisit that and bring that to you at the second reading.
You got
And
it
the
all,
title
stars?
probably for, not the
Right.
top title, the title of the
Adding
section.
seventh and eighth grades, and any other? Okay, all right, this is great, thank you. All in favor?
Oh, is it first read?
First read, it's only first read, yeah. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to our policy committee.
Thank you very
Jen,
much.
Rob,
Thank you,
thank you
Tim,
so
for
much.
that.
Thanks.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, so
Okay.
What?
are you, okay, this is-
No, I got it.
okay.
I got it. I'm dead.
That's
I'm
okay.
a dead man right now.
That's okay. Okay, then that brings us back to 10.1, which is a resolution on safe school measures needed now. And this is something we had talked about at, I think, our last meeting, where Westput had asked all the school districts to consider a resolution on school safety. And they gave everybody their language. We took this, by we I mean Scott and I, we took this and made it more appropriate to Byram Hills. So that's what you have attached to this. So what I'd like to do is get everybody's comments on that and then see if we want to take a vote to pass this or to continue talking about it or not having it at all. So what did you all think about as rewritten?
I would just add one comment, which is that, first and foremost, we obviously, as a Board of Ed and as an administration, locally take responsibility for the safety of our students, which is the number one priority that we have. And we obviously do everything we can within our power on the ground here to make the right safety decisions. But obviously, the world is interrelated, and we rely on the state and on the federal government for different aspects, including potentially funding. And so this is really a call to those external constituencies to help us in our effort to keep students safe. That's, I think, the philosophy
Yeah.
behind it.
Absolutely. I think it's great.
I'd be proud to support this. so.
As written? Okay. All right, then can I have a motion to, let's see what the wording should be. Okay, can I have a motion to, oh, I guess, should I read it into the record? I guess I should read it into the record, right? Okay, hold on one second. All right. All right, okay. Well, here's a resolution. All right, safe school measures needed now. Whereas the safety of all children in our schools is of paramount importance, and whereas a proposed 5% reduction to the current federal education budget would include $425 million in cuts to mental health and school safety programs, such as the School Emergency Response to Violence Program and Project Prevention Grants. And whereas in the past 5 years, over 440 students and staff members have been shot in more than 240 shootings across our country, and whereas the need for greater access to mental health services for students and families in our schools and communities was ranked as a top funding priority by the majority of superintendents in New York State, and whereas we believe that every child has a right to a safe school environment that has an appropriate level of security as determined by our community, and whereas a reasoned and rational approach to gun control, increased access to mental health services for students and families in our schools and communities, and financial support for school security are essential elements of a safe school environment. And whereas a coordinated effort across all levels of government, federal, state, and local, boosted by law enforcement and community engagement, is needed to protect our communities and our schools. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Byram Hills Central School District calls upon New York State and federal government leaders to implement a reasoned and rational approach to address gun control, school safety, and mental health services, and take immediate action to provide additional funding to schools and communities for adequate mental health, social and guidance services, and resources for the purpose of prevention, support, and response, provide funds for districts to upgrade their facilities if internal safety audits find there is a need for improvements, provide funding for essential security personnel and related professional development for all staff as determined by the local school district, enact rational and reasonable gun control measures, and resolve that the Board of Education of the Byram Hills Central School District opposes any reduction in federal or state funding for education that would cut mental health or school safety programs, and further be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Byram Hills Central School District calls upon the Governor, New York State Assembly, New York State Senate to address gun violence and provide support for local school districts to promote school safety. Can I have a motion to pass that resolution?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? All right, thank you. I will be signing that tonight, and then we will send it to all of our applicable public officials.
That is great.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Scott,
you.
thank you for the help in doing that together. Okay, brings us to new business. We have to approve this, right? Can I have a motion to approve the Byram Hills Board of Education 2018-2019 meeting calendar? Second. Do we have a first?
Yes, I so moved. Yes, she's so
Oh, I'm
moved.
sorry.
Sorry. I just yelled at her.
Okay, anything that needs to be discussed?
No?
No?
I think we have one Monday night board meeting, but other
Right.
than that,
We
that's
usually have
for
one
the
of those,
Jewish
don't we?
holidays, right?
Yeah, all right,
Other
nothing
than that, we're fine.
funny, right? Okay, all in favor? Okay, thank you very much for putting that together. We already, let's see, where are we?
Board committee assignments, discussion.
Yes.
Oh, that's right.
Right, okay. So in November, the Board of Education went on a retreat, like we always do every year, and this year we talked about board committee assignments, liaison roles, just trying to tie it closer into our overall school goals and board goals, and just looking at the way we're doing it, is it really being effective in accomplishing what we want? And we had some great discussion, and Jen, you summarized that up beautifully for all of us. And so today, the purpose of this is to see what everyone thinks about how this sort of edited down and see if anybody wants to share anything that they've learned from other neighboring districts or associations.
So I think part of what we were looking at in November was that we had some committees that were approaching the same topic but doing different parts of a job. So for example, the budget committee and the communications committee was meeting to look at how they're going to communicate the budget, but the budget committee was not on the communications committee necessarily. We also looked at a bunch of the liaison positions based upon feedback and whether we could actually combine those into a communications liaison committee. And also health and athletic advisory liaison of bringing that together. And I think essentially what these consolidations do is they focus on the board goals, first of all, of education reform and advocacy, because we are trying to be able to advocate for what we're doing in these schools and to advocate, on behalf of the schools to the board. And also the fiscal accountability and communications, I think, is an area that we've all decided that we really need to sit down together and look at what this budget development process looks like and the role of the board in that process. And I'm really proud to say that the board has been more invested in this budget process than I could have imagined, and we really needed that support this year, and it's been tremendous for us. So really outlining what to do for people in the future that is very specific would be important for us to do in our next retreat. So for now, it's really just the proposition of merging health advisory and athletic advisory liaison roles to the position of health and athletic advisory liaison. Did you want to talk about these one at a time?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a good idea. So, yep. So we'll talk about committees and then liaisons,
Mhm.
right? All right, so for the committee, what you were saying was the Budget Development and Communications Committee. 3 people would be on that. It's actually kind of maybe more Budget Development and Communicating Committee. It's not communications necessarily, right? It's
I have
communications.
So are we on
Yeah.
budget?
Yeah.
Here's a thought on budget. So part of this comes to, I think, just a better reflection of maybe what it could be, and then part of it is that I have seen it in other places, and it seems to make sense to me. Instead of calling it budget, it really, at the end of the day, may be better to call it finance committee. And the difference is that when you think about the way in which the board, from a committee standpoint, can be helpful, part of it's the budget. Part of it, though, is the projections and the long-term planning and that thought process / the just business practices, even when you think about something like investments, which from a policy perspective should be the policy committee, but certainly the policy committee can always take the lead from the finance committee in terms of what might make sense. So I just wonder whether if we call it the finance committee, that's a better description.
So is that though a better description, or is it really development? Because it's not really, I guess, it's sort of the process the way it is right now, that the budget committee is really more about the process, not really about the getting into the budget, but what you're talking about is getting into the budget.
In terms of just having a forum to just, before, ultimately the budget will be adjudicated here in public, when any decisions are made.
Right.
But in terms of just the thought process behind getting something to the point where it comes here, that's where I think
It's
from,
sort of financial development though, isn't it? Or
it's a finance committee.
It's a finance committee.
And that's, I think a fair number of districts use that term, not all of them, because still some use budget. I don't know, Jim, if you've probably seen both. I think there's both.
Yeah, well, at Tuckahoe, we were the finance committee, and then when we got ready to work on budget, it was /budget advisory. It was kind of what's combined.
Right.
Irvington, we had a finance committee. Brewster, we had a finance committee.
I think it's just a better word to use, and certainly the budget is within it, but it's a little bit broader. And then on the communications side, if we call it like finance and communications, then it really does seem like we're communications for everything, which it's not.
It's not. That's what I'm saying.
So I wonder whether we just call it the finance committee, and then communications is where we're on the other side.
Roles.
Right.
So I guess my one little caveat and concern, what I don't want to happen is, I hear what you're saying and I agree, and especially if you've got experts on the board that in finance, where not everyone's an expert in finance. But I just want to make sure that everything gets communicated back to the board as a whole. It's the one thing I get a little bit nervous when there's a couple people assigned to something as important as that. It's
Well,
hard
I
to
think
communicate all
that,
that
I
back to the
agree with you
board.
wholeheartedly, but I guess it's really no different on the policy committee. Because at the end of the day,
Right.
a decision's never going to be made, but yet we deliberate over these policies for
That's a good
hours, rightly
point.
so. Whereas with the budget, that doesn't
That's
really,
true.
that, the same sort of thing could happen. You know?
Right.
Yeah, I think if you go to term versus development, but more advisory, because that advisory then
Right.
is, because we're not
That,
developing the budget.
Right, the
Right.
budget, the finance advisory committee or the budget advisory committee?
And then in that advisory capacity, that kind of loops
Yeah, I
back.
like
We're
that.
advising the board in a greater sense as well.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Finance advisory committee.
Yeah, because you're right, we're not developing the budget. You
Right,
guys come to us with. the
right.
right.
It's, that kind of fell underneath, like, the budget steps from here and the budget calendar, that was sort of under there. Could still be under there, it's one of the.
It still needs to be under there. I
Oh,
don't think
yeah,
we can move the
yeah.
communications
Right.
over to that other communications group.
Right.
I think
Right.
it has to be the role of the people who are on that
I
finance.
think it just needs to be called something else,
advisory
'cause it's a little
committee.
confusing, because
Yeah,
I personally.
Finance advisory committee.
Yeah, I think.
I like
it's good.
that.
I like that too. All right, good thing.
And I like the addition of advisory.
It's still committee and not a liaison role.
Do you like the 3 people still on that? I find that works
Yes.
really well for policy and
I thought the numbers, the way you had the numbers set up here.
Is that
number
3
of people was
board
good.
members or 3 people, including?
board members.
3 board members.
Mhm. Audit committee still, of course, of the
Full board.
whole, I don't think we're going to argue with that.
Policy committee works.
So that works beautifully.
Yeah.
Emergency safety team, I would recommend that whoever's, if you're okay with it changing every year, whoever's the president should take that
Yeah,
on? Okay,
I agree.
that'll change every year, but that's okay, okay. I think it'll be that one, like the town liaison, will be prescriptive, okay. And then we talk about the liaison, let's talk about the liaison roles we have here, and then let's talk if anyone wants anything additional on this. So right now, the liaison roles are we combine health and athletic advisory, since it's all under athletics really, right, under Rob's role, 2 people. That's what we had said. Under liaison is communications liaison. This is preschool, PTSA, and the Education Foundation. So that would be more than just the budget, it would be everything, right? And there would be 2 people. Is that?
Right now,
Yeah.
don't we have 4 for that?
We
It doesn't-
do.
Doesn't seem like
That's
enough,
just-
because
no.
if.
I have
you
to
gotta
say, that's
use-
stretching whoever those 2 people is very
So here's the
thin.
thing.
You didn't say for
Disagree.
preschool.
Yeah,
The preschool is just a few phone calls really, and you guys went above and beyond what has ever been done before
Okay.
for the preschool.
But the
by-
PTSA is going to many of the coffees, and it just stretches you between the night
That could be, you're
Education
right.
Foundation. I do the Education Foundation. I try to do some of the PTSA, even though I'm not the PTSA rep. And it's a
Right.
lot of running around for those 2 people.
So between PTSA and BHEF being the biggest bulk of that, you
I
think you
think
need
so.
3 people?
Or 2 and 2 even,
Well,
2 for BHEF, 2 for
you
PTSA.
also-
I mean, it also
BHF
kind of
works
depends
well.
on on who the
Maybe
people are. Like,
3,
if it's
I
a
mean,
working
you can-
parent, it's going to be hard for them to go to those morning meetings.
You're actually broadening the responsibility, because it's a communications liaison. It's not just those 3 organizations, it could be more, like,
Yes,
we don't
maybe
typically
3.
include Bobcats on there,
But
but
it might
that
be.
would
Maybe
be,
3,
that would
yeah.
make sense to include, that organization on here. I don't think that's all inclusive. So
But wouldn't that
Maybe
be under
we
health
just
and
combine the
athletics?
preschool and the PTSA and we leave the BHEF.
Wow.
We could try, you know what, we could try it. This
Yeah, you
isn't
could try
written in
that.
stone. We could try this.
That's worth trying.
I think it's also good for them to
If it's
rotate.
still-
Like,
if it's
I don't
still
think we
running.
should, I think that it's good
I
for.
think 4 people's hard to manage.
I think 4 people,
Three's-
we can't,
I think 3 would be
Yeah.
good.
can't do 4 anyway, well, now. it's gonna
Well,
be
the only
together.
other way to do it, not
We
that
have 4
I feel
now.
strongly about this, but you
But
could
I'm
at the
saying
beginning of the
if
year have a
combine it in one,
calendar
right.
of, well, you could certainly do this for BHEF and just have.
3 would be great for
You could assign,
BHEF.
everybody can do a BHEF.
Right, they
That's
rotate.
enough.
That's actually good.
It's kind of nice to rotate, yeah.
But you
And
have
I
to
think
really
it's
organize
good
it.
You'd have
for us to get the exposure, so they learn who the board members are, not just one person.
Upping it to 3?
Yeah,
I think to 3
with
makes
the
sense.
rotation on the
And keep it the way it is
And we
and
could
we'll
always
try
think
it.
Yeah, let's
about
give it
the
a
other
shot.
aspect.
Then
of
you only have to go to
spreading
2, maybe 3
I think that's
meetings
right.
a year for the
Yeah.
BHEF.
All right, then town liaison is, again, always 2, and it's vice president, president, this is what that is, I think it's worked well. Then West Pot liaison and
Legislative Action Committee rep.
committee rep, that's good too?
Yep.
Okay. And then the delegate to the business
That's
meeting, we
just-
always keep that as if someone's going to go to that.
It's in New York next year, it's in New York
Yeah, it is
City
New
next
York.
year.
Mhm. So then the question, Jen, you had raised a question on the committees on whether we need a new communications committee. I would argue that we do, because I think if we had a communications committee, maybe they could have at least been involved with the website development, with what you put together, maybe, I mean, do a great job, but maybe it would have helped what you put together for realtors. There's so many, whether something comes up that we're not even anticipating.
Couldn't we put that under communications liaison? Does it have to be limited just to those?
Well, then that's a whole other thing, because also communications used to look at the budget brochure, they looked at the calendar.
The
I think-
hard part was they weren't part of the budget process. So
That
it was
should
kind of hard
be-
to really
But it was
look at that when you
more-
weren't.
But it's more the communication, like getting our, what our image is out there.
Right.
But I think the budget communication should fall under budget development, or what are we calling it now?
Yeah, the
And
finance.
Well, I think
advisory.
the finance committee can definitely look at the budget brochure.
I think
It's
so.
easy.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense. for
But the
them
other
to
stuff
look
Yeah,
at
that would be
doesn't fit
good.
under there.
The other stuff doesn't fit under there, and I think.
The
that
question
might
is, do you
be-
need a committee for it, or is it ad hoc enough that you don't need a committee?
I think it's ad hoc enough that the communication, if we're going to up it to 3 people, and something comes up that they need to meet about that doesn't fall under one of those 3 organizations.
I guess what
basically-
I'm getting at, I guess more of the marketing of the district, like I feel like, we weren't involved, maybe we shouldn't have been involved, I don't know, but like the website, I think there could have been a role, I mean, that's the marketing, that's our image. I feel like the board should at least have some role in that, even if it's just approving it or something, and there could be other communications too. Well, you know what? We don't have to change that now. This is going to be looked at again in the next retreat. We can delve into something like that a little
Yeah,
bit
I
further later
also
on.
blame that on the changing of the guard.
I know.
Yeah,
You're right.
I think that since then, everything, whether it's,
Mm-hmm.
something for realtors, it comes to you first to look at before it
Okay.
goes public.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, so then, did anybody have anything they wanted to share that they learned from?
I just wanted to ask one question.
Mm-hmm.
So are we okay with the health and athletic advisory?
Makes sense.
That, it
Yeah.
makes sense for that to be.
Totally
separate.
makes sense.
Okay, I didn't know if we covered that.
So, okay, just to go back again, so we added 3 people to the communications liaison. Town liaison we're keeping, the other 2 we're keeping for Westcott, right? Committees, we're changing that to Finance Advisory Committee, keeping it 3 people. Audit Committee as a whole, Policy Committee staying, Emergency Safety Team is the president, 1 person.
Is that, just with security-related issues, that's what falls under that? Is one person significant for that?
What that is just there has to be someone from the Board of Ed on there, but there is the district-wide, well, actually, you could probably explain it better.
We have a district-wide emergency response team.
Yes.
And we, as part of the district-wide emergency response team, whenever we have to review the emergency response plan, we need somebody from the
Yep.
Board of Education on there.
They don't necessarily, it's only when something is changing,
Yeah.
right?
So why does that need to be the president?
It doesn't need to, I think it should be. I think that, I think the president needs to have that role.
Okay.
Makes sense.
I do too.
Yeah.
I think, changing this from, I think structurally this just makes a lot more sense. It's cleaner. I think it also is a bit more collaborative to the extent that you have, these pockets of teams versus siloed responsibilities on different things. I think it brings the board working a little bit more in a group effort around this stuff, so.
Maybe the communications liaison, we list out, we put, in some way incorporate and other. Like it's just lists the preschool association, the PTSA, and the BHEF. But maybe we can incorporate that it would potentially include other communications
You're right.
as needed, ad hoc communications.
These are going to have to be spelled out a little bit
Yeah.
when we get into it, I think.
And I think in our retreat in November, we need to define the responsibilities of all of these groups.
And tie back to the goals, how does it tie into the goals to make sure that what we're doing makes sense? Okay. All right, so we don't have to vote, right? We just, on this, do we? No, right? Okay.
Come back and look at it again.
All right. All right, thank you, Jen.
So do we want to look at it again next time? Or
No.
we're okay
No,
to move forward with these?
Yeah.
Okay.
If we see when they need to be assigned over the summer, if it seems a little wonky, I suppose we can fix it again, but, okay. That brings us to staff reports. Superintendent?
Okay, so I will take my budget, our budget presentations tonight and our review of the committees as my report. I just wanted to say that I am very excited for my student highlights. We had over 100 students who returned from Disney. Safe and sound, Monday night. And this was really an interesting venture for the music department. They went as part of an adjudication process, and this is really important for our kids to be competing and to be judged and to learn the areas that they're being very successful and areas that they can continue to grow. Interestingly enough, our concert choir and jazz choir were both rated superior, and our orchestra, who originally went there not to be judged but only to receive an outside rating, Aaron Lockwood decided that this group was ready to be adjudicated also, and he changed his status, and that orchestra group also came out with a superior rating. So they had an incredible experience. I talked to so many kids at the high school today, and they want to know if they can go every year. We say, well, this is like a once in a high school lifetime experience. So probably we will not be repeating this year in and year out, but we thought it was really great for the kids to have that experience. And Disney did an amazing job of orchestrating where the, no pun intended, but where these kids were going and what they were doing, and safe at all times. So the chaperones thought it went really well, and you know, it speaks to our community that they spoke so highly of the kids being so respectful and appreciative of this trip, and that's what we've always found in these experiences. So very fortunate. I'm happy for them. And I also wanted to point out that the middle school students who had a sit-in on March 14th took some time to fill out some index cards on their thoughts about the recent tragedy in Parkland and to focus on acts of kindness. And while they did give those index cards to the town supervisor to look at, and they asked him to present it to the government, they've received those cards back, and they now put up a beautiful display of those index cards in the number 17 on the Crittenden windows with a heart and a peace sign, and it is moving beyond belief. And just that sail group at Crittenden, I am ready for you to take on the world, because you are. And I am glad that in my older years, I will have you to trust to carry us forward. Yeah, really special. And that's it for me.
Thank you. Okay, and then Tim, did you have a report for
I
us?
do, and I'm going to present with Peggy. We have an update on our elementary math
Exciting.
program, so we're going to just go up here. We're halfway through the year, so we wanted to update you on our rollout of the elementary math program. So we're going to co-present, if you don't mind, our staff report. So the first few slides, I'm just going to go back to last spring and review with you how we got to where we are today with our K through 5 math program. So to start, I will first just draw your attention to the highlighted boxes. So there's the new Common Core tests in 2013, which were more rigorous. Standards were being applied. The state even went and revised those tests and updated the cut scores, making it even more challenging in 2014. As a result, our current math program was no longer being updated with the to the Common Core, and it wasn't meeting our students' needs. We recognized the need for a new math program, so we convened a math study group in 2016. So we spent about a year and a half evaluating math programs, and then last year, this school year, began to implement, do a 3-year rollout of investigations of our new math program. The criteria we looked at We looked at rigor, and that was really defined as being a balance between conceptual understanding, procedural skills, and solving problems in real-world context or application. Also, the coherence was important, where we want math to make sense for kids from kindergarten through 5th grade. It has to make sense from year to year. And also the focus is that we wanted the math content to go deep, not just be giving them a lot of stuff, but to have a deep exploration of the math content, as well as a few other things were important to us. We ended up, after this 1.5-year process, choosing investigations. Investigations met our needs, and it really focuses on a classroom where students are talking about math, which research says that is a way kids can learn mathematics, and it is student-centered, and it really does focus on the conceptual understanding, and we felt this was highly aligned to our middle school math program, and particularly with the changes that we're making in the middle school now. And what we decided to do with implementation, I'm going to actually come back and revisit the implementation process, because Peggy and I have decided in the past month that we want to make a change to the implementation rollout. But right now, what our plan was when we first designed it was K and 1 have started it this year. So they're into the implementation process this year. 2018, our plan was for 2nd and 3rd grade, and then 2019 to go to 4th and 5th grade. I'll come back and talk a little bit more about the implementation at the end.
In addition to, so you're moving to 2nd and 3rd, but you're still including K
Yes,
through
yeah,
1.
they'll continue along. Yeah. So it'll be new for 2nd and 3rd grade students. And to those teachers, this is really from the teacher's perspective, this lens. We started to look at it from the kids' experience, which has made us decide we had to make a change, and I'll talk about that in a moment.
So if we think about what does investigations do for our children, we're observing happy, stress-free math thinkers with our 5, 6, 7-year-olds. And the way we can tell that is the lessons are designed in such a way that teachers really have to do a lot, take a different approach in terms of how they see math, how they hear math, how they listen to math, and how they have to be open to surprises that students give them, even our youngest learners. And one way that they're doing that is through inquiry-based learning. The investigations program is really through an inquiry-based learning model, and embedded in that is play. Math is really being taught through games at this level, so children are really conceptualizing concepts that we know they need at a very young level, at a very young age, to support them as they grow through the system. There's definite observable strengths in terms of what we're seeing with our kindergarten and 1st grade students. You can't think of math as a subject, and I've been saying this for 20 years at that level. Math is a language, and we have to have our kids speaking that language, and the best way for us to understand how they speak that language is to develop a strong number sense. We think of the base 10 number system, similar, those 10 digits are similar to our alphabet, and it's really quick. We talk about language compression, what takes up space in the brain, and what takes up space in our kindergartner's brain is different than what takes up space in our 1st grader's brain. And we keep compressing down those ideas so that we have more space in our brain to take on more concepts. So we have language compression in literacy, we have number compression in math. And we're really starting to see that with how our young children are talking. Their vocabulary is really sophisticated. They're talking about words. It's more efficient to do this, we eliminate this, we use that. That's coming from our 6-year-olds. So we know with our strong math students, we really need to have a strong number sense, because that is the language of math. And math's not a subject, it's something that we live and breathe every day. So on another side of what's really important is the social emotional development in terms of living in the math world. And we are really seeing our students be confident, engaged, attentive, calm. And that's because you heard Lisa Pellegrino a couple of weeks ago talk about that we want to have low floor, high ceiling problems. There's an entry point for every single child in kindergarten and 1st grade in terms of how investigations is laid out. And there's also just enough grappling for every single child so that children are being kind of stretched in their zone of proximal development for math. And that's the beauty of what investigations brings to our children. So what we've seen in these 2 grade levels. So we're gonna just show you 2 quick videos, very quick. These are 2 kindergarten boys.
What game are you playing?
Toss the chips.
And what's your total number?
6.
Okay.
To 1. Yeah. Okay. Now you go. Okay. So, how many yellows? 2. So, Jonah, let's write a 2 near in the yellows and 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 red. Kieran, am I supposed to do it or are you supposed to do it? Yeah, we both write it, you know. Both. It's not a good play. Yellow is 2. Yeah. So 2 is still left. So, now it's Jonah's turn. So we each take a little bit of turns, like we each go from me to John.
What game are you playing?
So actually, right there, you kind of see that compression. You saw subitizing. You saw the children didn't have to sit there and count. They're looking at parts of a whole. They could recognize 4 and 2. That's mid-year in kindergarten. And it's actually make a 5 plus 1. I'm learning that 5 is a whole, and it's half of the base 10 number system in terms of making a 10. So to you, it might seem like, what are you even talking about? But to us at the kindergarten level, that is massive amount of learning that's occurring, and it's very constructive. There was not a lot of counting. You just saw them knowing.
Amazing.
This is for 2 first grade girls, and they're working on base 10, making a 10, and it's all anchored around the base 10.
Can you tell me what are you doing in this game?
We are trying to make 10 together with one of each other's cards.
Okay.
So 7 and 3, let's go over here.
Oh, you made a 10 now. Who's going to make the next 10?
Let's see, what do So if we don't have any, then we'll pick from that.
Okay.
She said go fish to me, so then I go fish. And then do I have a match then? I don't have a match, so I will go. Okay. Oh, that was easy. Oh, that was easy.
What did you make?
9 and 1 and 7 and 3
Okay.
equals 10.
They all equal 10. Can you make one more match together?
Yeah, maybe. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
No counting at all.
What?
No counting at
No
all.
counting at all. Now, there was a lot of counting going into that, but that's the where they're at. And again, a lot of what investigation does is it takes the oldie but goodie games that we all played as youngsters, and they just kind of carry it through, the first 5-6 years of schooling. They use a lot of games to get the concept of math deeper and deeper. The important thing that you'll see is that seems easy in terms of what the children are doing, and it's supposed to feel easy to a child. But the real art of it is in this, teachers are actually being forced to orchestrate a math discussion, which was Tim was talking about earlier in the slides. Teachers are doing a lot of work now in terms of anticipating the kind of responses that children will give them. And while children are working, teachers are walking around collecting data. Okay, that response looks good, and that can connect what she's doing to what he's doing. And they're really studying student work while students are working, and they're monitoring it because they have an ultimate goal that they want to share with the whole class. So they're selecting students' work, they're sequencing it from a concrete level to an abstract level, linear, pictorial in between, and they're having children make those connections. So this is starting in kindergarten, concrete to abstract, and orchestrating this whole dialogic classroom conversation around math, which has been a huge change in how we taught math and that we were delivers of show and tell. I have the answer. This is more about children leading our work.
It relates directly to the middle school and what Lisa talked about, where the kids are working on those rich tasks. And if you recall, she showed the one problem with the rope and the tug of war, and the 4 different ways students solved it, and the teacher's role is to walk around and observe and listen, and then orchestrate the discussion afterwards and let the math grow out of the exploration of those problems.
By the time they get there, it's going to be second nature
I know.
to have
Yeah,
those conversations.
Yeah, that's why investigations really made sense when we did the evaluation of the program. So now I want to talk about the rollout. So this is looking at it from the student's point of view, and this is when Peggy and I had an aha moment about a month ago when we were actually planning resources. So this is looking at our cohorts. So right now, if you think about these as this from the student's point of view, we have our kindergarten and first grade students right now experiencing the program. Kindergarten will have it for all 6 years. First grade students will have it for 5 years, from first through 5th grade. Next year, we'll roll it out in 2nd and 3rd. So that's more from the teacher's point of view. 2nd grade teachers will be experiencing it for the first time, but not the kids. Kids will have already had it. For the 3rd grade, students that are currently in 2nd grade will be in 3rd grade next year, and they're going to have investigations for 3 years. And I feel that's a really good time. A lot of these games are used currently at Coman Hill in the old program. We've integrated those games into it. So we feel this will be a nice transition for those students, and having 3 years of investigations will really get those students ready for middle school. This cohort we started to have a little bit of a problem with. So our current 3rd grade students, and our current plan would go to 4th grade using the current WAFIS curriculum, which is the New York State modules, and then in our plan would go to 5th grade with investigations and only have 1 year of it. I feel like that's a big leap. Content from 4th to 5th is big, and then having 1 year of investigations going into the middle school. So we started talking about that, and what we think will be a better experience for those kids is to roll out in 4th grade next year as well, meaning our current 3rd graders would go into investigations next year and have 2 years of investigations before going into middle school. The content will be still a little bit of a leap, but not as big from 4th to 5th, going from 3rd grade content to 4th grade content. I think we can get it ready. So over the past month, we've met with the 4th grade teachers to talk about their readiness for it, looking at the budget to make sure we can have the materials ready for it, and we feel this would be the best plan from the kids' point of view. We would still stick with waiting for 5th grade till the year after next. I don't think 5th grade's ready for it, and it's not going to make a difference because it'll still be 1 year either way. Or this actually will be 2 years, so it'll be the teachers. The kids will have 2 years of investigations, not 1 year. So I think this is a better plan for everybody to roll it out in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade for the teachers next year.
Do you feel confident that they'll be where they need to be for the standardized tests? I know it's not all about the tests, but
Right, yeah, I think we'll have them
the
ready.
test is still coming, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, and my philosophy has always been teaching the math well, and that we'll make sure that they're ready for the test if the math is aligned, if at least the standards are aligned.
This is an exciting and great change.
Yeah, great.
Don't you like it? So we had an aha moment from the kids' point of view, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, now can we get our teachers ready? And we feel we can.
I feel like this whole, this is going to be such a huge shift from even kids, I mean, it's certainly from when we grew up, but even kids now. You know, my 6th graders right now look at me and say, when am I ever going to use this stuff? Why do I need to do it? And this is, from kindergarten, you're integrating it into their real life.
Right.
It's constantly about when you're going to really use this.
And it's about the thinking, and it's about solving problems.
Yeah.
There's application is equally as weighted as the skills as well as the concepts. So that's going to be our plan, and we felt we wanted to update you first on how it was going and also where we're headed next.
Thank you so much.
Very good.
It's
Okay.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for
Teacher feedback for this program has been great.
Yeah, teacher going in the classrooms is really amazing. I have just one more brief staff report as well. I wanted to do one more thing. And it's just to talk about, we have the state tests. Speaking of state tests coming up, the week after vacation will be the ELA tests. And then a few weeks after that will be the mathematics test. I just wanted to make a few points about some of the changes that the state has made to the tests in the past few years. That has reduced the amount of time students are testing. That was a goal of the state. As you know, a lot of parents spoke out, a lot of educators spoke about the over-testing, and the state is trying to be responsive. So just to highlight a few points. One is the state has worked hard to reduce the time that students are testing. A few years ago, they reduced the number of items in the 3 through 8 ELA and math tests. And then this year actually reduced the number of days from 3 days to 2 days. So our students will only be testing 2 days in ELA and 2 days in math as opposed to 3 on the 3 through 8 tests. Also, the tests are untimed. They started that last year, so students can take as long as they need to finish the assessment. So they won't have to finish within the 2 or 3 hour window that was allotted to them.
When do they start being timed?
When do they start being timed? On the state test, the Regents tests are 3 hours, but usually kids are finished within an hour to an hour and a half. 2 hours is usually the maximum. And then there's students who need extra time, and those students always have plenty of time. And then also those state tests cannot be used as a sole factor in promotion, retention, or placement. And the scores of the state tests cannot go on a student's transcript. So those have been all changes that the state has made in the past several years, and I just wanted to make sure our parent community knew of that, as they may be thinking about decisions whether or not to refuse the test for their kids. So I hope all our parents will think about that in the consideration.
Have they always been on the transcript before?
They've not gone on the transcript, but was placed in the student's file, meaning that if a student transfers to another district, you would send the scores with them. We're no longer allowed to do that, so we actually keep the test scores in a separate file from the records that get sent.
I mean,
If you
what's
have to
left?
take it
I mean,
here,
why,
yeah.
I
Why
mean,
can't I know
it's
if I'm
really-
receiving your
yeah.
child, your student?
I know. That was all part of when there was a lot of pushback from parents about the testing. That was one of those things that the state said, well, let's do this. And then they just threw out this policy.
It's so
to us.
weird because academic intervention comes out of those tests.
They do.
So if I'm receiving you from another district and you can't send your tests, how do I know that
Exactly.
you need your academic intervention?
So we ask parents to communicate that information to
That's
the
ridiculous.
child in school.
Do we hear any communication in the community, parents? Is there a trend to keep it?
I haven't been hearing a lot right now, so, but I don't know.
We got an email.
We did send
The
out
deadline
letters.
was today, right, or tomorrow? It's
So that was something new this year. I decided that it was
Yeah.
important to just at least communicate these changes to our community, and I asked Kim Lappel and I asked Deb Cagliostro if they would send a letter. I drafted the letter with them and pointed that out, and we thought this year if we could at least have a deadline, we'll get a handle on it. We may still get parents at the last minute wanting it, but it became a management problem, and I think that's where the pressure came in, the peer pressure. Because if you remember, our numbers, our refusal numbers in 8th grade were really high, 7th were high as well. I think that was a lot of this peer pressure. There were a lot of last minute kids coming in with notes from their parents. So we think it was, our friend's not doing it.
So you're,
Good enough for me.
in terms of, as the deadlines now approach,
We'll take a look at those.
are you not, you're not seeing a lot of opting out?
What's the
No.
deadline? Did you ask for RSVP? Is
We
that-
did,
Okay.
yeah. We'll see how many are paying attention to that, and we'll see how the week goes when the testing starts and what type of,
It'll be interesting to see that.
parents, we'll just see if this approach changes anything. I still think it's the family's decision. I just wanted to communicate to our families what the state has been doing and what we're trying to do.
And the
So
data
that-
is useful to us.
Exactly. The data is
Yeah.
useful. We do use the state test data. We use it particularly for intervention. It's important for parents to know that the state tests are used not as a measure that we're making decisions about your child for their placement. What we're using that for is to get them ready, to make sure your child is ready for the rigor of high school. It's
Right.
really what the state tests were originally designed for under No Child Left Behind, so that we can try to catch students before it becomes a high-stakes test at the secondary level and prevent students from graduating.
And last year, there was a very good Bobcat TV that was recorded, where the superintendent and some panel members spoke
Right.
about the pros and the cons of the exam.
Exactly, so we had that panel discussion about it.
So maybe we can rerun that, if it's still relevant.
It was in the email that you could go back and look at.
That's
Yeah,
good.
we had that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay.
Pam?
That brings us to board reports and president's report. The only thing I'm going to say is that I'm attending it, Lori, you're attending tomorrow. You're
I am.
attending Jen's. It's a Westpot negotiations and legal issues breakfast, I guess, networking breakfast tomorrow. Does anybody have any committee reports or board reports?
We have our preschool Coman Hill coffee on April 11th. Jen, are you coming to that? Because we're kind of going back and forth with what to put on the agenda.
What time is it on the 11th?
9:30?
9:30. I'll check.
Because if you're coming, we'll put you on the agenda. So we're touting it as, it's an informal, it's not supposed to overlap with the
It's on my
orient.
calendar.
It's not supposed to overlap with the orientation that Mary Beth already did for incoming kindergartners. This is more informal. It's a chance for parents to come and get to know Mary Beth, to get a tour of the school, and Jen, since Jen will be there too, to get a tour of the school, because that wasn't included in any of, it's not included in SOS, it's not included in the orientation. We also, it'll be a chance for us to show them things like the new indoor playground, and talk about a little bit about the BHEF and the ways that they can start to get involved, the PTSA, the BHEF. Also talk about fears. My kid's never been in school before. They've been in preschool, but they've never used a cafeteria line. They've never gotten on the bus. What happens, this chaos, and my kid's going to get lost, and how are they going to know where their classroom is, and all these anxiety that parents coming into kindergarten for the first time have. And it's a more informal way for us to talk about that. So Mary Beth did, sort of a day in the life type of thing at the kindergarten orientation. This is a little more talking about the parents' anxieties and giving them a snapshot into the school, because there is that separation that's very different from the preschool experience. In the preschool experience, you pick up and drop off every day, and you're there and you see the other parents, and you feel there's a lot of anxiety that comes with that disconnect moving into a school. So we're hoping to alleviate that, get parents a little more involved, feel more included, and also get them involved in understanding why they need to get out and vote in May. So we're incorporating all of that.
Is the PTSA involved in this too, or this is strictly now?
No,
right?
this is just us.
Right. All right.
Just Lori and I and Mary Beth.
them.
No, I was
mean,
just
we'll send
curious.
them a
It sounds
flyer.
like it could be, some of the stuff on the agenda sounds like it could be PTSA. I mean, I could see this actually growing later on.
Well, and that's, that is our hope.
Mm.
Mary Beth's very open to that, and she said, if this goes well and people are interested and the attendance is good, she's really happy to run with it next year.
Because you could see a rep from the
It's like our pilot.
Education Foundation, a rep from
We should
Boosters, or-
invite them.
We have talked about doing that. I don't want to get it. I don't want to.
Yeah, no,
I don't want it
too
to be
much on the
too
agenda.
sales pitchy,
Right.
where
Right.
But
I just want to get rid of the fear of the unknown, and knowledge is power. If they know who to contact, how to get involved.
It sounds fantastic.
But we like the
think
idea
so.
of getting people, we'll let them know what the opportunities are for getting involved. Things like, I remember when Rebecca first started at Coleman Hill, I didn't know about the newsletter that they send out every week.
So that would be something, that obviously would be board related, but that would be the principals related, but from the purposes of the board, it's just to get them integrated into the community and hopefully the budget.
Exactly.
vote.
Getting them to understand why, it's targeted towards incoming kindergartners, but it's open and being advertised to all preschool parents.
Great.
And our hope is that, we'll try and get them to feel more a part of the district and understand why it's important for them to participate in things like voting and things like the BHEF, even before your kids hit the district.
Really exciting. That's wonderful. Yeah, wow, I love it. Really, really great. Thank you. Any other board reports?
BHEF had their gala. It was lovely. It was absolutely lovely, and people were bidding, especially on the school items. That's always so exciting. So thank you to all the teachers and administrators who donated, and everybody in the community, because it really did raise a lot of money, which will all show back up in our kids' classrooms.
It's a nice mixture of parents from every school building also.
Yeah, it seemed like it.
Yeah.
Definitely. A lot of effort went into it.
Great job.
They do an amazing job.
Fantastic. All right, any other committee reports, board reports, topics for future agendas, requests for information, communications to the board? There were two. Board should have seen them. One was a response from a community member in regard to civics and security. I responded and shared it with the board. Another one was a complaint about the give back days because of weather. And any
I think
other
every
ones?
district has that.
Yeah. Okay, so can I have a motion to approve our Board of Education minutes from March 6, 2018?
So moved.
And a second. Okay, any changes or comments? All in favor? Thank you, Donna. Can I have, we already went into executive session, I said that before, 2 items. They were item 3.1, which was personnel matter, individual employee, and 3.2, legal matter, transportation. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Good night, thanks for watching.